crew. Voices in the dark, altitude and attitude, laughter over scars. Death on call, we ride that line together. Stories from the sky, we drag them through the weather. Yeah. Death on call, we bleed in quiet confessions. AC hearts built from chaos and aggression.
This is the Death on Call podcast, episode 5, the 1 Alpha 2 show, all loadmasters with an EWO. Tonight, we have 2 very experienced loadmasters, which for those of y'all listening now that may come from a different community or the ACJ, loadmasters are what you used to be, or at least a portion of you. Tonight, we have Master Sergeant retired Cade Cooper, and then we have Tech Sergeant retired Joshua Johnson. I will read their bios and then we will get started. We will start with JJ, who is Technical Sergeant retired Joshua Johnson, and he wrote a dissertation. So let's begin.
I tried to keep it light. I mean, I could have added so much more.
Began his career as a dental assistant from 98 to 05, trained in all aspects of dental technician clinical procedures, stationed at Shepherd Air Force Base, Osan Air Base, Korea, and Eglin Air Force Base. Decided to join the real Air Force and cross-trained in 05 to become an aircraft loadmaster. Originally was supposed to go to C-17s at Charleston, but requested to stay in the Eglin-Hurlburt area. Ended up getting C-130s at Dias, but asked for AFSOC due to the mission. Got his assignment halfway through LIQ to AC-130Us. Got to the 19th Special Operations Squadron, which is the formal training unit, in 05, and began his career in the best job he ever had. Finished with the 19th in June 06, reported to the 4th Special Operations Squadron, started out in the resource office, and in 08, after sewing on Tech Sergeant, was moved to the Loadmaster, NCOIC, and Functional Manager position.
Thanks.
First deployment was December 06 to Iraq, the infamous 12 versus 1 crew, or as we call it, 12v1. My next deployment in 07 was back to Iraq with the Danny Deuce incident from episode 1. Third deployment saw him back in Iraq for the last time in 08, and the trip where T. Hood and his crew had the Danger Close shoot. They met the SEAL team leader of that op at the theater hospital before he medevaced out. 09, 10, and 11 saw Afghanistan. By 12, the Air Force had caught on to him being in the Eglin-Hurlburt area since 03 and was going to non-volunteer him to the CRG, the Contingency Response Group. He chose Ramstein Air Base, Germany instead. Was the NCOIC non-commissioned officer in charge of airlift plans, scheduling the C-130Js out of Ramstein all over Europe and Africa. Was responsible for many of the humanitarian missions into West Africa during the Ebola break. Planned the Jill Biden Africa tour that messed up multiple missions to accommodate her sightseeing adventure. 2015 saw him back at Hurlburt with the 4th Special Operations Squadron, but this time as a Special Missions Aviator. Again, he was the non-commissioned officer in charge in the resource office until being moved up to one of the flights as NCOIC of the Special Mission Aviators. September 6, 2016 to January 2017, first deployment back in the gunship, where we moved the aircraft from Kuwait to Incirlik to interdict the ISIS spread in Syria and Western Iraq. One night alone, my crew was responsible for 15% destruction of ISIS black market oil trucks in southeast Syria. Took a full combat load, including floor-loaded 40 Mike, and they Winchestered, which means they shot all their ammunition. 2017, he did his one and only tail swap, bringing the aircraft home from Incirlik after being home for 4 months. Ended up in a Crete hospital overnight. In total, he had 2,223.7 total flying hours with 1,500 combat hours, 8 deployments, 4 to each theater, 250 plus combat missions, numerous enemy killed in action, only 2 times being legit shot at on combat missions. Let's welcome to the show Technical Sergeant retired Joshua Johnson.
Appreciate it, Pelt. Love being here, man.
And that's all the time we have. Now
That's
we're
it. That's
Thanks.
all we have to.
bio took it all. Jeez.
That took every bit of it. So we will introduce Master Sergeant retired Cade Cooper. Master Sergeant retired Cade Cooper's distinguished 21-year career in the United States Air Force is marked by exceptional service and a series of remarkable achievements. He embarked on his journey by entering the Air Force in 1994. His initial assignment was with the 16th Special Operations Squadron. In March of 1995, he received a permanent change of assignment to the 4th Special Operations Squadron, where he became a plankholder, a title of honor for being one of the original members of this newly established unit. Master Sergeant retired Cooper was one of the first 7 initial loadmaster students to qualify on the AC-130U Spooky gunship. His expertise and dedication were further demonstrated by his participation in a world record-setting C-130 endurance flight that lasted an astounding 36 hours nonstop. His combat experience is extensive, with 17 total deployments spanning from the Balkans through the Iraq War. Notably, he was a crew member on one of the first 2 U-model gunships to engage in combat during the conflict in Kosovo. Throughout his extensive service, Master Sergeant retired Cooper accumulated approximately 5,000 plus total hours, and after 21 years, 3 months, 8 days, 17 hours of dedicated service, Master Sergeant retired Cooper retired from the Air Force. He is a proud holder of the coveted DD Form 214. Welcome to the show, Master Sergeant retired Cade Cooper.
Hello.
17 deployments, and you still don't have 1,000 combat hours?
Nope. Well, I do. If you count combat support, that's where you get to go drone over the map.
Okay. No, but still,
Yeah.
I mean, that's why it blows my mind that I beat you on one thing. Toot,
That's
toot.
it, though, bro. You can have that one. I'm good with it. That was like the only thing I wanted before I was done.
I got you.
Yeah, well, shit in one hand, want the other, Coop. So let's start with Coop.
I do that all the time.
Go ahead. Yeah, I bet you do. Coop, I want to start with you because it predates, JJ getting there. And, I want to talk about kind of the differences. You joined in 94. What'd you join for? And did you come in guaranteed as a 1 alpha? Things like that?
Yeah. So kind of the genesis of, how I got to the 4th and my time at the 4th was when I graduated high school. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. College was always an option. It was expensive, but it was an option. And I really wanted to go into the military initially. Went and saw the Navy recruiter, did my ASFAB with the Navy, scored high enough that they said I could be a power plant technician or something. I guess that's when I found out what it was. It was mess around with nuclear power plants. I didn't really want anything to do with that. So then I went and saw the Air Force recruiter, which was really weird because the Air Force recruiter was never around. Good guy, but he was never at his office. So when he finally did show up, I went over and showed him my ASFAB. My dad told me, hey, son, if you join the Navy, you're going to float around on a boat with 5,000 other guys for 6 months. If you go in the Army, you're going to walk everywhere. If you go in the Marine Corps, you're going to float around with those 5,000 dudes, then go walk everywhere. So really think about joining the Air Force and fly everywhere. And you want to be a loadmaster. He told me what it was. And he had been in the reserves for, 20 some odd years. So he kind of knew the gist of all the jobs out there. So I asked, got a guaranteed job as a loadmaster. That's why I left in September instead of like June of 94. It was just getting everything lined up for the schools. And the biggest difference is that we didn't have a centers of excellence. JJ, did they have that when you went through?
I don't think they called it Center of Excellence yet. It was EAUC. So,
okay, yeah, we didn't have that. So we went straight to Shepherd Air Force Base and went through BIQ or BLQ, Basic Loadmaster qualification, and that was just the altitude chamber and a ton of math for 3 weeks. And then went off to Little Rock, and I initially had orders to Dias when I left Shepherd. And, they scare the hell out of you with those orders. They say, hey, you got 5 copies. It's all you're going to get. Don't lose them. I was like, okay, or you're never going to get where you need to go. So I get to Little Rock and I check in with the registrar and I hand her my orders, and she gets up and walks over the shredder and shreds them. And I was like, holy shit, what are you doing? Yeah, I'm an airman basic. I didn't have any stripes. I had no idea. And I was like, holy shit, what are you doing? And she came back and she goes, don't worry about it. You got new orders. And that's when I got my orders for the 16th SOS. So then back then, the loadmasters had to go through not only your basic loadmaster qualification course there, but you had to do mission as well, which was airdrop. So I got to do all the airdrop qualifications too. That was fun. And then when I got to the 16th SOS in March of 95, after I graduated out of Little Rock, they told me, nope, we don't want any airmen in the 16th, but this new squadron that's going to stand up the 4th, you can go over there. So they had a little cubicle spot when I walked over where it was D flight in the 16th SOS. I walked over to D flight and I said, okay, there's nobody in here. And all of a sudden, Major Berlingmeyer, everybody knows Sean Berlingmeyer. He was the first guy I met. He kind of leaned over around the corner and said, are you coming to U models? And I said, yeah. And he said, are you qualified? I said, well, on slicks, I'm qualified. He goes, okay, well, here's an embossing gun. And so they, put your name on I think it was green for inbound, but meant you weren't qualified, at all on the airplane. So they ended up, the 16th used me quite a bit to fly on the slick out there. So I had close to, I want to say 200 or 300 hours before I even started flying on the U model. And back then it wasn't the 19th SOS. It was a central training flight. And it was 1/8 the size of what the 19th is now. So there's only one building, and the second floor is where all the classrooms were. So that was kind of my getting into the 4th SOS was, and becoming a plankholder, because once we got kicked out of the 16th and we got enough people, we went over to the old OSI building that doesn't exist anymore. It's over where billeting is now by the gym on base. And it was condemned, and we were working out of there for a while. And when I say there's like maybe room for 6 or 8 guys. So most of the time back then, you just stayed at home. You called and checked in at 1400 and they go, why are you calling me? You're not even qualified. I don't give a shit what you're doing. Just don't die. And you're like, oh, all right. So for like 3 months, I was raising hell on the beaches and in the bars and all that stuff. Having a good time. And then Ralph Courtney got a hold of me and ruined that for me, put me in a pub shop. So the way he tells it, he's like, you released a 19-year-old out on Fort Walton Beach all by himself. Are you freaking crazy? He's never coming back. You got to get him a job. So
yeah.
So yeah.
What did you, when you were flying slicks, were you moving anything, or did they just have you on as basic crew?
Yeah, they would, so the 16th guys, the pilots, they would fly the slick to keep their currencies, because everything up front was pretty much the same. And that way they weren't beating the hell out of the H models. They just go and fly the slick, and we'd haul stuff. Usually there's 2 loadmasters on there. So like Jeremiah had flown with me a couple of times, which that's kind of comical too, but because neither one of us knew what the hell we were doing. We got there and like, hey, you're gonna load 2 engines and a prop, and you're gonna take them up to North Carolina. It's like, us? We're what do you mean we're going to do that? It's like, there's no other seasoned loadmaster you can put me with that can show me. Like, hell no, you're out of school, you're good, you're qualified, get on the plane. So but like our first orientation flight when we got there, because you always have to have an orientation flight when you get to a new Air Force base, when you're a loadmaster or an aircrew member. And that's like your sign off that you got in your orientation. You know where the runway is, you know where the parking ramp is. It's not a check ride, but we went out and flew that orientation flight, and I'm not gonna drop any names, but I'm pretty sure the loadmaster that was watching over us was way hungover or still drunk, because that's how we used to party back in the day. It was pretty hard partying for all of Hurlburt Field back in the day. Not a reputation I think they want to own up to nowadays, but back in the 90s, boy, that was some living there. So,
Yeah,
but yeah, it was, we were moving a bunch of stuff. You know, I brought a plane load down from Norfolk. It was a bunch of Navy nurses and med techs. They were all coming down for some big conference at Egwin. Went and picked them up. I didn't know what one of the other loadmasters was constantly, because they're wearing they're either in their browns, their navy browns, or their whites with the skirts. Then the other loadmaster that was with me would go right down the airplane with his flashlight, looking between looking right up their skirts, but he'd be like, gear check, gear check. And I'm like, what are you doing, man? I was not the fastest kid on the block sometimes when it came to that. And he'd be like, dude, I'm doing a landing gear check. And I was like, but the landing gear, the wheel well's over there. You're starting at the front of the airplane going up. He's like, dude, you're stupid. They're all wearing skirts. It's like, oh, I got it now. Yeah, I caught you. Got it. But yeah, it was fun.
That's good.
It was fun.
JJ, what about you? You came from as a cross trainee, and you know
I got to
you were
hear this story.
yeah, and you were like Air
Mongo
Force
no more
recruiting.
wanna brush or
You were Air Force recruiting material with your blonde hair and blue eyes and big muscles.
You had to bring up that damn
Mongo
recruiting.
no want to smash no more.
Yeah.
Mongo clean teeth.
I'd seen it everywhere, and then all of a sudden they're like, "This is." I think you were right before you made tech. You were still Staff Sergeant Johnson, and I was like, "I've seen you before," and you're like, "Shut up."
Yeah, that was one of those self-identifying things that I didn't know you didn't do in the squadron, and I owed a lot of beer for that crap. No, so I came in a little bit after Coop. I came in '98. You know, coming out of high school, I had aspirations of being a ball player and all this other stuff. So the JUCO here in my hometown, they had actually within the first 2 or 3 years of their existence of their baseball program, they won the JUCO World Series twice, and I was like, there we go. That's where I'm going. I got into college and I found out college sucked. So I started getting all those Army recruiting like pamphlets or whatever in the mail. And I thought, you know what? I'm dumb enough. I can go into the Army, do that thing for 2 years, get out, let them pay for my college and all this other neat stuff. As I start talking to my parents about it, of all people, my mom, because my dad's retired Air Force, but my mom was like, well, if you're going to do 2 years, you might as well just do 4. I was like, wait, Mom, you're actually talking me into going into the military. And not only that, we're talking about the Army. I'm not even considering the Air Force at this point. And kind of was like, yeah, you know, you got a point. And kind of went on a little bit longer. And it was one of those things that, well, the Air Force started kind of reaching out to me, and I started seeing some of the stuff the Air Force had. And of course, you know, growing up in the Air Force, I kind of knew what the life was like. And I said, well, what about this? And they're like, yeah, well, if you're going to go reserve or guard, you might as well go active duty. Just, you know, instead of doing the you know, whatever their vacation time is, whatever it is when they show up, if they show up. So I started kind of toying around with it as I'm sitting in my history class going, holy shit, this is the first time in my life I'm not going to pass a history class. And I think at that point I was just like, it's sink or swim. You know, I can't keep, you know, making my parents pay for me to go to college and I'm not even passing my classes. So went in, talked to the Air Force recruiter, and I said, you know, it's going to be one of these things. I'm going to make it easy on you. I was like, I know what I'm going to do for the Air Force, but what can the Air Force do for me? And that recruiter's mouth, I mean, his eyes and ear to ear grin, like, oh, I got this kid, hook, line, and sinker. And so I was like, yeah, if you don't mind, I wouldn't mind coming back and talking to you with my dad. And so we came back, and I said, hey, Sergeant Smith, I still remember my recruiter's name. Excuse me. I said, this is my dad, retired Master Sergeant Johnson. I was like, you know, he wanted to kind of come in and listen to your spiel as well and see how you guys are going to treat me. And he kind of got like a, oh shit type thing. Like, I can't pull the wool over this kid's eyes anymore. And he got kind of done talking to him. My dad kind of was shaking his head like, yeah. And I said, all right, where do I sign? And my dad just kind of stopped like, wait, that was the most impulsive thing I've ever seen you do. And I was like, well, what do you mean? He goes, you're not that type of kid. So I was like, well, I felt this is what I needed to do. And so as time kind of went on, I started thinking about jobs, and my dad was like, well, what do you want to do? Because he did security forces, or no, I'm sorry, security police. Then he was a security police instructor down at Lackland, and then he cross-trained into maintenance. And so it's like, well, I want to follow in your footsteps. And he's like, what do you mean? I was like, I want to be a cop. And he goes, no. I was like, why not? And he goes, you'll see the best and the worst of people, and those are the ones you work with. And he goes, and that's not even dealing with the populace of the base. And I was like, all right, you got a point there. I said, what about maintenance? He laughed. And I'm like, what do you mean by laughing? He goes, you're too much of a crybaby, a little bitch when it comes to the weather and all this other stuff. You don't like it when it's too hot and you don't like it when it's too cold. I was like, well, what the hell do you suggest? And he was like, what do you want to do? I was like, well, I want something that'll transfer to the outside world. This is 98. Nothing's going on in the world except for Bill Clinton getting a BJ in the Oval Office, stuff like that crap. And so he goes, okay.
It's the oral office.
The oral office. There we go. Sorry. And so I was like, well, what do you suggest? And he goes, anything computers or anything medical? And I said, well, computers and I don't get along, as you kind of got with me trying to figure out how to even get into this damn podcast. And I said, so I guess it's medical. And so I started looking through the book of all the medical stuff, and radiology came up, and I was like, I want to do radiology. That was the primo job for any enlisted individual going into the Air Force. If you could get radiology, you were set. And he was like, yeah, good luck with that. So why don't you pick a couple other jobs? And I was like, well, what about dental assisting? He goes, yeah, you can throw it on there. And so I was down there at MEPS, got through everything. Yeah, I was kind of like Coop. I could name my poison, so to speak. And I said, dental assisting. And I can remember the master sergeant that was running MEPS. He was like, you don't want to try out maintenance? And I was like, all right, I'm just going to let this guy kind of feel good about himself of talking me into doing something. I said, you can put it down as like my number 5 job or something like that. And I told my dad, he goes, you idiot. He goes, that's where you're going to end up. And I was like, oh shit. And so anyhow, I ended up getting dental assisting, guaranteed, came in, did that for about 7.5 years. And when I was stationed down there at Eglin, I had one of the girls I worked with, her husband was a gunner on the H models, and I talked to him every now and then. And of course, this was 03, so everything with GWOT wise was kicking off, and I wanted to be a part of it. I got tired of sitting in a damn dental clinic, which, hey, it was great, but working with a bunch of females, it was like being in high school again with all the drama and all that crap. I mean, it wasn't bad having the eye candy walking around, but when you had to really sit there and kind of tell 2 staff sergeants to quit bickering like they're in high school again, it really kind of wears on you a little bit. And so I started kind of doing my homework, and I had a patient of mine when I was running the orthodontic clinic over there at Eglin. He was a loadmaster on the shadows. I was like, well, so what are you doing? He was like, I do this. And I was like, I'm too stupid for math. And he goes, so am I. That's why I've got a calculator. I was like, well, I can use a calculator. So I started kind of doing my homework again and put in for all those, put in for loadmaster. And like I said, originally I was supposed to go to Charleston. When I turned that down, every loadmaster I'd talked to was like, are you an idiot? I was like, yeah, I guess I am, because I don't want to go there. And so once I got down up to Little Rock for LIQ and all that neat stuff, I kept pestering the guy down at assignments down there at Randolph, and he finally just told me to shut up and leave him alone, because I mean, it was a weekly thing. I was like, hey, anything yet? I'm going to Florida. Anything yet? Going to Florida. Because I've been there for about 2 years, and my wife had finally gotten a job. She had, just graduated her bachelor's. I wanted to kind of make her have a normal life, so to speak, instead of up and moving her. And so he came back, said, I got U models. And I was like, all right. And I was in school with Amber Mitchell, of all people. And she had her assignment going to the H models. And as soon as she found out that I got U-boats, she was like, who the fuck do you know? And I was like, why? She goes, because we kind of, discussed how our careers kind of lined up. And she goes, you've had the silver spoon in your mouth since day one. I was like, what do you mean? It was like, and so it was kind of funny, because it was really easy to go in there in class and just pester the shit out of her, because she was going to the H model and I was going to the Cadillac, and
Yeah, we got a raw deal on that.
yeah, bite me, dick. But anyway, but it was funny because, like, Coop, he went through MQ or mission qual and all that stuff, how to put stuff on the airplane, and because they're at Little Rock, they were like, well, dude, you're not going to be loading cargo, you're not going to be dealing with passengers, we're just going to get you through the initial 3 months or something like that of being a loadmaster. So learn the numbers, where you can and can't put stuff on the airplane, but you'll do, like, what was the rolling offload or something like that?
The engine running offload.
There we no, that wasn't it. It was
Yeah.
where we unlocked it, and the pilot, they juiced it
The
just
cargo
enough.
offload.
Combat
Combat
offload.
offload.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
The
So that
combat
was
offload.
that was my check lock,
That was-
my check ride.
Yeah.
And because I even remember the staff sergeant that was giving me my check, literally went to sleep the entire time. He was literally under his leather jacket sleeping. He's like, look, read your -1. So being the student and trying to get out of there as fast as possible, I'm sitting there reading my -1, and he's over there sleeping. I was like, I think he asked me 5 questions. He goes, "You can do this the easy way, or we can do this the hard way. What do you want?" And I was like, "Is this a trick question?" He goes, "No, dude, seriously, easy or hard?" And I was like, "Well, let's do easy." He goes, he gave me whatever questions, and he was like, "All right, good, you passed. Good luck at Hurlburt." I was like,
Yeah.
"Where the hell?" And so, yeah, and then so I ended up at Hurlburt in December of '05, and went down that rabbit hole of the AFSOC life, and I miss it.
This episode of Death on Call is brought to you in part by Danger Close Apparel. Founded by a fellow AFSOC aviator and former AC-130U Gunship fire control officer, Danger Close creates high-quality gear that bridges the flying and special operations worlds. Hats, shirts, patches, and more that let you wear your story with pride. Whether you're repping the gunship heritage or just showing support for the community, check them out at dangercloseapparel.com. Use promo code DEATHONCALL, one word, at checkout for 15% off your order. Danger Close Apparel, because some stories are worth wearing close to the fight. Thanks for supporting a veteran-owned business. Yeah, it's funny because I had a very similar scenario happen on my check out of Little Rock in '07, and my evaluator's name was Hugh Kringle, and it was like lightning within 5 and all this shit, and they had me, a co, and a nav, I think, in an FE getting a check, and we get to the plane, upload whatever training load it is, and um he was like, I remember the AC coming over and was like, "What do you need, load?" And he was like, "We need one touch and go." And he's like, "Okay." And I ended up getting a 0.5 on my check right out of Little Rock. And he was like, "I don't give a shit. You're going to Hurlburt." And I was like, "Okay." And yeah, they just didn't care, um, because we weren't their problem. Um, that's good. All right, so Coop, I want to jump back to you. So you coming in being, you know, a first gen gunship baby, and being kicked out of the 16th to go to the 4th because they didn't want the airmen. What what did that look like those first few years being a U model guy, but not there not being really any wars to go out and fight?
Oh, there's when
I
we
mean, there's
first started,
contingencies, but
yeah, there was. We were going over to Italy quite a bit still, because you still had the war in the Balkans. Everybody was there's still civil wars there with Serbia and everybody else too. So there's always some skirmish that we'd be looking over and had operators on the ground doing their stuff. But that first couple of years, like I said, we were a squadron without a home, and everything like get kicked out of the 16th SOS into a building that's condemned and going to be torn down in a year. So we worked there as much as we could. There weren't any airplanes, U models really on the ramp. I think we had 3 at the time. The rest were still in mod. And one of them, 128, that was, that tail was a permanent test bed for a long time. That one in 511, they had test rats all over the place in there. And so it was a lot of flight testing. Still the same profile that we fly today, man. 5-hour missions to 7-hour missions, depending if you got an AR in there, air refueling, But then we finally got in the trailers in 90, I think that was 97, mid 97. We got in, we were trailer trash. We were back there by the Rifle and Pistol Club back there, and living in big trailers, and ops and maintenance were still married together. They were under, the squadron commander had also command of maintenance. So their trailer was right behind ours in the parking lot. And they knew on Fridays if the planes were going to fly or not, because all they had to do is look at the back patio at the squadron, and there would be kegs of beer lined up chilling. And they're like, "Oh man, there's 4 lines tonight. I bet you only one of those planes is going to go fly." And we take off. And back then there's smoke and fumes and stuff, but if you were flying late on a Friday and you got everything kind of done, you'd just go, "I smell something back here," and everybody's like, "Oh shit, let's go home. We got to put it on the ground and give it back to maintenance." So as long as you got your live fire out of the way and the training that you needed, wasn't going to give the pilots a whole shitload of touch and goes and that hostage pro that they do. That's ridiculous. Nobody wants to do that on Fridays.
We were
And,
still doing that
you know-
once I even got to the bird. The gunners would be like, "Hey, we got the live fire done. Load, what do you see or smell?" And I'm like, "Well, nothing." They're like, "No, load, what do you see or smell?" It's like,
yeah. Yep. Yeah. You had to find any way to get the pilots to at least knock it off,
Yeah.
let them get 3 or 4 touch and goes. And then, all right, man, you guys are done.
Depending on
That's
who the
probably why I
AC
had
is.
to have back surgery sitting on that ramp. I never sat
Mhm.
in a CRC, hardly ever. The right scanner compartment, yeah, I'd sit there on Pilot Pros, but generally every flight I just sat on the ramp, and they just smashed that plane in there. It's like, geez, and your back's just getting crunched. But yeah,
Well,
when we were
that seat on the ramp, like, I want to know who engineered that, like, and said, like, this is a safe position, because it is the
I don't
most.
know. I mean, I look at it and I go, well, it technically, anytime you've ever seen like a C-130 crash, the only thing that's left is
Is the tail.
from the troop doors back. And I'm like, well,
Yeah,
I'm still gonna be here. I'll be like, damn, that sucks, but I'm still around. But yeah, it was horribly uncomfortable. I think it was an afterthought. They said, well, those would be aux seats for people. Everybody want to sit in the CRC, and they just make you sit back there as a student just to, make
You
your
guys
life
were
suck.
dicks.
And then it was just, well, I'm going to sit back here anyway, because nobody's bugging me back here. Nobody even wanted us back
100%,
here.
yes.
So,
Right. Yeah,
so half
for
the
those
time I flew
listening
in
that
the
have never
bubble.
seen
I'll
it,
admit it.
100%. Same with me. Yeah, load secure. And but it for those listening that have never seen it on U's and I think H's maybe, it was a thin-skinned piece of sheet metal that folded down and was used mainly to store 105 spent brass during live fires.
towards the end.
And yeah, towards the end, and it had a little piece of braided wire as the hinge, no cushion, nothing. You're right after the ramp crest, and that's where the loads set. It was awesome.
Yeah,
You
I would
dig
take
out-
the engine plugs and I would
Yes.
throw them on there and sit on that if I knew the pilot was exceptionally rough on his landings. I would definitely put those cushions down there.
No,
But
I
yeah,
remember-
I mean,
No, I was just gonna say that I remember when we started getting some of you guys that were non-priors, you guys going through the schoolhouse and all that. Whoever, I think it might have been you and Chili over there at the 19th, and you started having the guys fly astronaut style.
I don't remember that.
I remember the
I'm
new
sure
guys
I
having
did
to
it.
do that
I
because it
mean,
was kind of one of
I'm
those things
sure
that,
I did.
telling the kid to go out and pick up 50 yards of flight line and all that stuff.
Well, that's because that got done to us too. It's like, go get me some
Yeah.
prop wash or something. Here's a,
Yeah.
and you're like, what the hell? And you'd have to run out on the freaking flight line with a bag. They'd be like, go stand behind that plane, get some prop wash, because we're gonna test it. Bring it back. And like, look at this asshole. He's actually gonna go do it. And the trash
But I
gate
always
bag
remember
gets
you guys-
blowing across the freaking ramp.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, there's just, when we were in the trailers, what the biggest thing that you'll notice whenever you talk to gunship guys and gals is that they all have big personalities, and a lot of us have the same ego to go with that. That hey, we're the best at what we're doing because we're on gunships. And
Right.
I still kind of like the fact that when you talk to some people, they're like, "Oh, there's no loadmasters on gunships." I was like, well, technically not anymore, but when they were, and they're like, yeah, you guys are just shoveling brass. I was like, nah, there wasn't any of that going on. That's what I got told too in school. Was
That's exactly what I got told at Little Rock from this this tech that was an LMQ partner with this guy that I had went through BLM with, and he was from the 16th, and he was like, all you're gonna do is shovel brass, and I'm like,
Oh,
what?
I know who you're talking about. Little short dude, blonde head guy.
Yeah.
Yes.
I know exactly who that is.
And I remember
he would do that to everybody.
Yes, but I remember right after he got to Little Rock, I think it was they did something to where he ended up, because it was something like he was guaranteed to go back to the gunship, and he fell into this weird dynamic to where he got hosed and he had to stay there at Little Rock as an instructor and wasn't
Yeah.
guaranteed to come back to AFSOC. Oh, he was pissed.
Yeah, he was
Yeah.
trying to get the P5s as well too. So
Yeah.
Yes.
I think
Yeah.
he ended up
He,
getting P5.
I don't know. He was an angry asshole, and
Mhm.
that's what he kept saying to us. And he was like, going to Spectre, and I was like, nope, I'm going to Spooky. And he was like, well, whatever.
Yeah.
And you're just like, I don't know what to tell you.
I'm sorry. My
It-
life
Yeah,
doesn't suck.
well,
Yours
when
does.
myself and Jeremiah and the guys that were ahead of me, we were all kind of a novelty because you had to have 500 hours to get on just about any aircraft in AFSOC. And because of the fact that the fourth was standing up, they didn't have enough people to do that. So what they started doing was going through all the classes and looking at who graduated, like what the scores, the highest scores on the individuals, and out of BIQ or BL, whatever the hell it was called, basic load out of Shepherd, and whoever did the best there, that's basically who they picked. And you didn't even know that was, you thought it was just random, but the actual functional up at AFPC was seeing those reports, and he would assign the guys that did the best and gals that did the best over to gunships, and trying, at least because we didn't have commando look for us. The gunners and the sensors had commando look, but we didn't. So you had no idea what you were getting. And they just kind of did that based off the test scores, so out of Shepherd, and said, okay, these guys all did really, really well, so we'll bring them over. And somehow I sneaked in. I was like, hey, so
Didn't we all, Coop?
yeah,
We
yeah.
all snuck
Mhm.
in.
Definitely.
But the
like-
funny
it's like-
thing is that, I was here in 1994, I think, no, 93 with my dad when he was on the reserves. And I got to go out and walk on the H model, got a tour of it. And I said, man, if I'm going to join the Air Force, this is the only thing I want to do. Either that or be a PJ or a combat controller. And so
See Coop as a PJ.
my dad was like, there's no freaking way you're going to get to Hurlburt Field. You have to be in the Air Force like 4 years and have all these hours. And when I got my orders, he said, well, where are you going? And I said, Hurlburt Field to the 16th SOS. I'm going to be on gunships. And he's like, how the hell did that happen? I was like, I don't freaking know, but that's what's happening. So, it's
yeah.
kind of worked out for me, man. So I can't be too upset.
Definitely. Okay, so y'all both came from different dynamics. Coop, I want to, you came in. I like to categorize, those that came in the '90s as Clinton Commandos, but then GWOT happens and kicks off. Talk to me about that, like going from whatever you were doing, previous to 9/11 to that.
Yeah. So I'll take you through that genesis there. Italy was interesting. And when I say interesting, it was just a hell of a good time. You didn't fly like super long hours. And you'd have to fly in country to get your hostile fire pay. So like once a month, if we didn't have any missions happening, we'd do what we call a split run, where we'd go over to Split, Croatia, fly in and do a touch and go, and that would start our time, so we get our tax free and hostile fire pay and stuff. But our combat time was only when you were in country, and then when you were loitering, they didn't like you to stay over Sarajevo and Bosnia and stuff. So you'd go over there, prosecute your mission, usually escorting, team guys running around on the ground. And then you go back over the med and just sit and wait. And that was all your combat support time. And the first real operational thing I did with that there's anything, remotely combat related over there was Operation Silverwake. It was when Albania had decided to, invest their entire economy into a pyramid scheme. And the pyramid scheme, like they always do, failed. So now the country's bankrupt. The government is screwed. and we're all over there supporting the evacuation of all the Americans. And it was real funny because one of the ACs had a panache for just pissing people off, and he'd do it on purpose. And the ambassador was like, the U.S. ambassador there was like, "Hey, can you guys fly a little higher?" You know, because we had embassy security. We'd be flying over the embassy to make sure the Albanians didn't go nuts and try to loot it or take any hostages or anything. And not like we were going to shoot them anyway if they did. But regardless, we're flying like top cover for her. And she sent a communique saying, "Hey, you guys need to fly higher or turn your motors down. It's too loud." I'm like, "How the hell do you turn the motors down?" And so instead of flying
Whoa.
higher, he flew lower and did tighter orbits. So it was way louder. And yeah. And so it was just crazy, man. We were out there one night. The Albanians, we thought they had, you know, left all their radars off and all that stuff. And the Navy had gone and, you know, shot some of the radar dishes so that they couldn't shoot missiles at us, but they missed one. So we're all flying in to Albania and an SA-2 comes up. And my AC is like, back then, a lot different tactics than, you know, the guys use now. But back then it was a descending brake. You would just yoke it up as hard as you could and, you know, dive and try and get under the radar and, you know, change your cross section and all that stuff. So as soon as he starts to pull that maneuver, I told him, no, level off, because there was F-18s that were hauling ass. I'm like, why are they leaving? They have missiles and shit, and they're fast as hell. We're
Right.
slow. Why are they all screaming out? We had nowhere to go. Every airplane was running. And one of the crews, JP Palin, you know, if you can ever talk to him, that guy's, he was on Jockey 1-4. He was the pilot there. He came from the 16th to the 4th. You know, if you ever get a hold of, I can try and find him, but JP is, you know, a lot of stories there. But he was over there and flying in Albania, and Ewo forgot to tell him that, yeah, their radar warning equipment wasn't working properly. So he was just flying around over there, dumb. And he's like, "Where the hell are all you guys going?" They're like, "The SA-2 is active." He's like, "What?" And he's like, "Holy shit." So he had to descend and E&E out. Like they're flying like 500 feet to try and get out of the country. They're like, and he was like, "Hey, yeah, our shit don't work, boss. Sorry. I didn't think there's going to be any problems with that. There isn't going to be any missiles out." And he's like, "God damn it." So
Damn
yeah,
Ewos.
it was,
It's that whole complacency that you know. I think that I mean I wasn't there for that for early stuff, but you just get used to there's nothing out, and all of a sudden shit.
yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, so that leads me to my next one is, you know, the big one for us was Kosovo. Right. So Kosovo, it aligned pretty much with the Monica Lewinsky stuff. So not that, you know, I'm a conspiracy theory guy, but it was really odd that all of a sudden all this stuff was in the news about Monica Lewinsky and the president. Now we're over here kicking the hell out of this little country called Kosovo, that nobody's ever heard of. The Serbians, you know, doing their deeds.
Bosnia
But
Herzegovina.
yep. So we went over there, you know, and there was two crews out that night. 164, that was the airplane I was on. Great plane. Always flew great for me. That was an awesome plane. But when we were prosecuting our mission, you know, there was a guard base on this next to this road. And apparently all those guards, you know, as the ethnic Albanians were leaving Serbia and trying to get out of there before they were ethnically cleansed, they had to go through this mountain pass and right past this guard shack. There's like 30, 40 guys there. And they're committing all kinds of atrocities. Like you'd see intel where they were taking pregnant women and cutting the babies out of their stomachs and all that other stuff, you know, just raping and killing and all that. So we were pretty excited to go shoot these assholes. And we got over there and started shooting. And God damn it, if all the bullets didn't start, you know, they were hitting in the compound, but the sensors couldn't see them because they were missing so badly. And it was because our computers, back then when you'd tweak in the med. So you're at sea level. Now you're 9,000 feet and, AGL, actual ground level, you're up higher. Well, the computers were still set for sea level. So the guns were way off and the sensors were working their butts off. I mean, we tried the 25, but it landed out on the road, not really where you wanted it to go. So it was all 40, 105. That's the first inference of the torso toss that everybody likes to, when they see somebody get tossed. I came up with that one right there watching it. Matt Artis was sitting next to me and I go, holy shit, we got a torso toss. And he's like, what? And I said, yeah, rewind it just after we came back. It landed on the roof and slid down. Yeah, it's kind of dark humor that we all have, but yeah,
We
it was
love
like,
it, though.
holy shit, yeah, that is a torso toss. And you could see the trail behind it because the sensors back then were horrible. The stuff they got now is amazing, but that one, that we also got shot at then too, because I mean, we didn't really think when we went in to go do that mission. Intel had said there were SA-6s all over the place, and the Serbians are the ones who basically teach the Russians how to use them. But they'd have the actual tells for the missiles set up along this road, and they drive the truck with the radar up there to them, just plug them in. And they hadn't seen the truck in weeks, so they just figured those missiles were abandoned out there. So we didn't really think there was any issues. And we broke the one cardinal rule that we had set for ourselves, is that after we said we were only going to do 3 minutes, hit the target, then get out of there. Well, because the guns were missing so badly, I mean, we're doing good work, but it was really hard for the sensors. And once we figured out what was wrong with the elevation, we said, well, we'll go back in and we'll get the rest of the guys. Like maybe there's 2-3 guys left that, we're going to get the rest of them. So we started to fly back into the same target. And that's when the first missile came up. And Jerry Goodman, he was the flight engineer that night. And John Murphy was our pilot. Rest in peace, John. That one hurt a lot. They all do, but that one hurt a lot. He saw it. Jerry saw it, called it. And we had discussed at the time, since none of us had ever seen anything in real life, no missiles, no AAA or anything like that. We had the VTRAT, and it's the visual threat assessment and awareness trainer, I think was our visual threat recognition and assessment trainer. We had that thing, but it was kind of low grade. The quality wasn't all that great. So you had to imagine it all the time, in your training. You're like, I got to imagine what the AAA is going to look like. I got to imagine what a missile is going to look like.
Right.
And we said, you know what? We're just going to kick out chaff and flare at the same time for any missile that comes up until we figure it out. Well, holy crap. That first missile, you start yanking and banking and doing your descending brake. And we're kicking out flares and chaff. And I mean, that first missile came by and it went up over the top of the plane and it lit up the entire back of the airplane. And we had the blackout covers on and everything too, on all the windows, and it still lit up the plane. I was like, holy crap. And the second one went off, and that's the only one I truly saw myself. And it came right up. It went over the top again and off the right wing and into mountainside over there. And the guys on the other crew, they were watching us, and it's too bad that they didn't actually, because nobody liked the TV, because you couldn't see nothing with the TV. So nobody really ever recorded those tapes, right? It was all IR
Right.
video that you'd record because you can see stuff. But the TV operator that night was actually watching us and could see us and could see the missiles, because we got back and Intel said, well, there's no radar. And the radar didn't come up. And so there's no way that you got shot at by SA-6s. And then one of the, it was a Navy Intel guy, had come in from one of the carriers. I forget which carrier was out in the ocean at the time, but he had flown in and he said, oh, no. Yeah, they have, the Serbians have the ability to launch those ballistically. And then all they got to do is kick the radar on at the last second.
Yep.
And get the final solution they need to hit the plane. He said they got an IR system just like yours. They look at it, they find you, they get the elevation and the azimuth, and that's all they need. They can launch it. And we're like, well, okay, now this makes sense. But yeah, that was the Kosovo stuff. And, you know, being on one of the first U models to shoot in combat, I was like, okay, I've arrived, I've done my thing. The following, the year before that, we had done that 36-hour nonstop to Korea. We left here 2-ship, did 36 hours nonstop, 7 air refuelings, just to prove that we could get anywhere in the world. So we were 2-ship formation all the way from Hurlburt Field to Daegu, South Korea. That was a long 36 hours stuck in that tube.
I was gonna say,
You know, and the Sterling Williams, I don't know what Sterling's doing these days. Extremely quiet cat. He was the other loadmaster with me. Great dude, but not very talkative. And I think the whole entire time on that flight, he said 3 things. It was like, yep, nope, and, you know, okay, that was it. It's just, you're like, hey, Sterling, do you need to sleep at all? You tired? Nope. Like, well, I'm going to go lay down. Okay. You know, it was just no conversation. And our gunner, once he got the airplane pressurized, rolled out his sleeping bag and slept for 36 freaking hours, dude. Like, I never saw
That's
him
impressive
move.
as hell.
Yeah, I was afraid he was dead. I'd go up to him and check, like, oh, hold my hand under his nose, be like, no, he's still alive. All right, but he ain't moved in 36 hours. He's sleeping between the 40 and the 105 on the floor on like a little tiny air mattress in his big mummy bag for 36 hours.
damn.
And
Yeah,
I don't think he
that's-
even got up to take a piss. I don't know how he did it, but maybe he got really freaking drunk the night before and just passed out for 36 hours straight. But it was crazy. So, you know, I'd done those things, and I was at the 19th. I was an instructor, and I wasn't too into that whole 19th SOS. So in September of 2001, I was actually up in Minnesota. I had talked to UPS and was going to take a job as a weight and balance authority guy out at the airport. And then September 11 happened. So I did the interview on the 7th. I had my whole family up there with me. My parents, my mom and my stepdad were living there. And they were at work. We were getting up with the kids, and my wife's cousin called and said, you know, hey, something just hit the trade center. We're at war. And I was like, what the hell are you talking about? So I go to kick on the TV to my parents' house, and for some reason the cable box wasn't working right away. So there's nothing but snow on the TV. And I was like, holy shit, it's the end of the world, dude. It's an apocalypse. What the hell's going on? There's not even any TV. We've really been hit. But then, you know, I cycled the TV box a couple times and it came back, and just saw the Twin Towers fall. And I called the UPS guys I had talked with, and they said they weren't hiring. They're on a hiring freeze. And I said, that's great, because I'm not leaving the military now. I got shit to go do. So I actually managed to get a rental car, because we'd flown. We weren't going to be able to get out of there, you know, on a plane. I think it was about a week. Most of the airlines were shut down, you know, and people were trapped everywhere. But I managed to get a rental car out of the airport, and we went and loaded up the kids and started driving home. And one of the coolest things that happened is, you know, there's nobody out on the roads. So I was speeding quite a bit. I got stopped in about 7-8 miles from the Louisiana border in Arkansas. And the state trooper pulled me over, and he's like, what the hell are you going so fast for? And I said, hey, I'm in the military. You know, I'm at AFSOC. I got to get back. You know what just happened? He said, oh, hell yeah. He said, get right behind me and stay on my tail. And he gave me a police escort all the way to the Louisiana border, man. It was just flying. I was like, holy shit, I can't keep up with this guy. This rental car is going to blow up. But he just had the lights going. He gave me a police escort all the way to Louisiana. And then somewhere along the line, I got handed off to somebody in Louisiana to get me to I-10. And Yeah, because I had another police escort there, but they weren't going lights and sirens. They were just basically following, making me follow them. So I got on the highway and we got back here and, yeah, that was the start of GWOT for us. I mean, that was going into Afghanistan, getting ready for that. Like I said, I was at the 19th, and one of the things that they had decided was that it was going to be all internal to the 4th SOS for those deployments when they started. So they weren't taking anybody from, the 19th SOS, and it was there's some funny ass stories there. So I had our squadron commander at the time, he took his own task force. I mean, there's a process for everything, but he was bound and determined to get the 4th in the fight first. So at the time I had come back to the 4th SOS, and he was already gone. He had taken the guys and was gone. Like all the planes were gone. And so we were helping out with manning, because we had no students. So we'd help the 4th out with manning and stuff. And I was working MCC, and General Slythe back then was Colonel Slythe. I think he was the group commander.
Yeah,
I think. And he walked through the squadron. I didn't even know he was in the building. He walked through the squadron, went out the back door to the flight line, and saw there was like maybe 3 airplanes left and the whole squadron's empty. And I was helping out with MCC that day. I don't know why, but he came up with and lost his shit. He was like, "Where the hell are all my airplanes?" I said, "Well, they're on their way over there." He's like, "What?" He's like, "Nobody's told them to go anywhere." It's like, "They all fucking boogied out this morning at like 2 a.m, dude. They're gone." And that might have been us helping pre-flight. I'm sure that's what it was. And I was like, "They're all gone." So he got all the way, I think, to Spain. And they told him to stop. And you can't go any further, because he was like, fuck it. I'm going all the way. I'm going to get in there first and be the first ones there. So yeah, there's some funny shenanigans that happen, as far as that goes, and getting over there. But yeah, I didn't end up going till Christmas time. We were operating out of a small base on an island named Syria, and flying into Afghanistan. And it was also one of the coolest things is that if you remember Desert One, Eagle Claw, when we went to go rescue the hostages out of Iran and all that stuff happened, the helicopter hit the Shadow, and so that was the same base that they operated out of. That's where they launched that mission. So it was really cool to be in that spot with that history behind it. And I don't know if you've seen the pictures and stuff, but we had all our tents were right across from the CRW's morale building and their basketball courts and shit. So they'd be out there. You could have 3 beers a day, but they'd open them, all 3 of them, pop the lids. But our guys are all resourceful. They just fill up water bottles with them, fill the water bottles up with beer and save them all for one good blowout. Get 7, 8 beers in you. And, but yeah, we had all these signs up everywhere. It was like gunship country, no ramps, our kill boards and all this stuff. And people are coming over and getting their pictures taken with the kill board and gunship country sign that faced the CRW's main morale building. And REMF is right there, no REMF. And I had one of them ask me, like, "What the hell is a REMF?" And I said, "If you have to ask, you are one." And he's like, "Well, what's the acronym stand for?" I was like, "Rear echelon motherfucker. You're not an actual guy out there fighting or doing anything. We don't want REMFs in here." And all these colonels and shit are getting their pictures taken with a big REMF sign right next to them. I'm like, oh my God. Once they figure this out, somebody tells them, they'll be like, I'm gonna put that picture somewhere else, so.
Yeah, right. As their REMFs.
Yeah, they're all doing REMF shit. But we also had like, there was an old Soviet ejection seat that was next to our big power transformer that everybody would get in and just start pulling handles and shit. And they said, "Oh yeah, that thing's decertified. There's no rockets on it. There's no nothing." So one of the last things we had to do before we left Masira was get rid of a bunch of shit. So we took that out to the range to shoot. And I didn't do it, but one of the other loads threw it out the back of the plane. And when it hit the ground, the fucking rocket went off and the seat went 800 feet in the air. And we're like, holy shit. It was still
Y'all-
armed, dude.
Y'all had
And
been
we were
playing with
pulling on
that.
the handles. We must not have done it in the right sequence or something, but there's people constantly yanking on those handles and having their pictures taken in it. We're like, holy shit, it still had a rocket in it. I mean, it went about 800 feet in the air. Just imagine if that would have went off when somebody was just sitting there getting their picture taken. I don't, that's freaking 800 feet straight in there. Yeah. So no parachute on
shit-
it, no nothing.
The shit that gunship loads have thrown out of a plane, like it would
We didn't
surprise
do
most
anything
people.
like that. Come on, pal.
Like one of my first trips, one of my sensor operators had me put his wedding band around a glow stick and drop it, and there was a tick, and he ended up schwacking it because his significant other and him had been splitting up, and we'll have him in a couple episodes.
Damn.
Yeah.
Way to go,
I've thrown
dang.
some stuff out the back. One of the most infamous ones that was my refrigerator incident.
I was wondering if you're gonna bring that
in
one up.
Kuwait. Yeah, in Kuwait we had those dorm refrigerators. They're tall, but we had two of them broken in the hallway that went out to the smoke pit area, and they had shot the shit out of our radar target out there. And so we couldn't tweak the radar anymore with the guns. And I said, let me see if I pick this up. And I said, that's about 200 pounds. That's not quite heavy enough. So what I did is I filled it full of water bottles, like cases of water.
Yeah.
And so we were planning on throwing it out. And I was sitting out back, and Jared Falk is sitting out there with us.
Oh,
and
he popped it up.
I just in conversation, I said, it would be so freaking cool to make that a seeded target. And he goes, what's a seeded target? I said, well, something that explodes, So I said, like putting gasoline in there or something, or some way of making it explode. So he was on the planning crew, and he brought the refrigerator out for us to load in the back of the van. So we get it on the plane, and all of a sudden he starts putting water on the plane too, cases of water, the boxes. And I'm like, dude, we don't need any more water. We're going to have water coming out of our fucking ears here, dude. We can't possibly. He goes, oh no, I filled that all with gasoline. Every one of those bottles is filled with gasoline. So you can put it in the refrigerator so it'll explode when it hits the ground, or when you shoot it. I was like, oh, hell no, dude, get that shit off my plane. I said, do you know what gasoline does to water bottles? I said, it'll eat that thing apart in the next 45 minutes. You'll get gasoline on them. No,
Yeah.
hell no. He's like, what? I thought you wanted. I was like, that was a joke, bro. I mean, Jared, back then he was just trying to fit in, but like, he thought it would be a cool idea, but no. And we got up there over the range, and now that damn refrigerator with all that water in there probably weighed close to 300 and some odd pounds. And I was the only one with when I told my gun crew, I said, hey, you guys help me get it near the ramp, and then I'll push it over, because I'm the only one wearing a harness, the restraint harness that was hooked into the floor. And they all got way overzealous when they started pushing that thing. And one of them almost went out the back with it. I grabbed him at the last minute, and he's like, what the hell are you doing? I said, look where you're at. And he was like, oh shit. He's standing right on the ramp hinge. And so, yeah, we had the 53s were the guys from the 20th were in the building next to us. And we had gone over and talked to them that, hey, if we're going to throw this refrigerator out. I said, if one of these guys falls out, we call you up, you run out and go get them, because they'll have their chute. You just go get them, and we'll just act like they're on the plane. We don't need a big fucking incident about this. And they're like, Jesus, you're serious? They're like, fuck yeah, man, we got you. Just give us a call. We'll go pick them up. I was like, all right, sweet. But thankfully that didn't happen. And, the AC was like, this better not fuck up the plane, and it better not hit the tail and all that stuff. I was like, nah, it's heavy. It's not. And it dropped like a meteorite. and we had put glow sticks all around it and tightened up the took old shitty tie down straps to hold the doors closed. And one of the gunners over tightened the damn strap and burst one of those green uh green glow sticks. It looked like the fucking Predator got slaughtered in the back of the airplane. There's just green glow stick stuff everywhere. But yeah, and then my sensor couldn't shoot it. He couldn't fucking hit the damn thing. So went through all that work to give him a radar target. The freaking nav couldn't find it on the radar, and the sensor lost it on the way down. And then he saw it, and then he couldn't hit it. And then it was like, okay. And the crew that came through right behind us, we told them, hey, we put a radar target out there for you. And yeah, they shot the shit out of it, blew it all to hell. And then I got back, and Jason Niper was there with me. Now he's the group evaluator at this point for all the loadmasters. And boy, he was pissed. He was super pissed. I'd thrown that refrigerator out. So I was getting a pretty good chastising over that. And then the dust settled, and one of my gunners got a big Sharpie and went down to the other freaking refrigerator and wrote, "Jason's too scared to throw me out." Big as shit on the front door, which then caused me to get my ass chewed again. I was like, I didn't do it, dude. He goes, that shit's not funny. I said, that shit's fucking hilarious, but I didn't do it. And I didn't know for like 10 years who did it until probably about 2 weeks ago. They finally told me I was the one who wrote that on there. I was like, great, dude. You got my ass chewed twice. So
You want
But
to
yeah,
name drop
that was-
them?
in the pot.
oh yeah, that was Scott Jacobs. That was Jake. Jake had written that. I'll name drop him. I don't care. So he wrote that shit on that door and got me in trouble. So, but yeah, it was
That's
it was interesting. So
that's pretty cool.
well, I'll shut up now. JJ's got to talk some too here.
Yeah, JJ.
Keep
So
me the Coop
coming
show. I'll just
from
laugh my ass off.
JJ, coming from a non-combat arms occupation to combat arms, what was that like?
Man, I was kind of
Talk me
hoping you'd
through.
ask. Go ahead.
No, I was saying, talk me through. Going from dental to all of a sudden you're in a combat arms occupation that eats itself.
Yeah, no, honestly, when I was, because we went down to North Dallas today to, celebrate some Valentine's, because I didn't get home till late last night from a powerlifting meet. Well, anyhow, I was kind of like, man, I hope Pelt asked me, what it was like coming from dental to the real Air Force. And so I was thinking, I was like, well, how am I going to answer that? And I remember specifically the first day that I started class at the 19th, it was Chaz, Lieutenant Colonel pilot type.
Oh, Stoner.
Yeah, Colonel Stoner, because he was the DO at the 19th. And, I'm sitting there, medical, you everybody's name and rank. It's yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, all that stuff. And it didn't matter if you were an airman talking to an NCO talking to a senior NCO, and so on and so forth. And so it was kind of weird, because in dental or medical, we were there to put everybody back together. It was about do no harm type crap. And I'm sitting there that first day we started class, and Colonel Stoner walks in. He sits down in the front of us, and he goes, "Hey, we're in the job of killing motherfuckers. If you're not about that, get the fuck out of here right now." And I'm just sitting there, and I remember, because Brian Burrell and I started together at the 19th. I looked over at him, and I just smiled and started laughing. He's like, "What?" I was like, I've never had an 05 drop motherfucker and fuckers in one sentence and it'd be okay. So I was like, I know where I'm supposed to be, and it's right here, right now in the 19th SOS, learning how to be a 4th SOS loadmaster. And so, going from being an individual that had to put people back together, literally, to literally making people go into many millions of pieces was quite eye-opening, because we had to learn the ROEs as far as a medic, how we can carry a weapon, if we can point a weapon, how that bullshit goes on as far as, Geneva Conventions and so on and so forth going, Geneva Conventions? Fuck Geneva Conventions. We do what we need to do to get the job done here. And so it was really eye-opening, to really see what the real Air Force was really about. Because I did my year in Korea. We played, our war games for about a week, once a quarter over there. So, full mop gear and all this other crap. We're carrying M16s, protecting the hospital, shooting sim rounds and all that other neat stuff. And so, yeah, you kind of get into the, okay, if this really, really happens in South Korea, we at least know somewhat of what we were doing. But going from that to literally, okay, now we're putting our guns on the line to actually kill guys just because of the simple fact that they exist. And they're trying to hurt our guys that are coming in there to try to, all the teams and all that stuff to execute their mission. And so it was, to say the least, the cool factor went from 0 to 1 million overnight is an understatement. Um, I remember Ed Nissen was one of my instructors there at the 19th. He took me out on my first GT, my ground trainer, and I'm sitting there on the night on one of the U-boats for the first time, and I'm just standing there. And I'm looking at everything, and he starts asking me some questions like, "Hey, you need to start answering this when you start getting this ball rolling." I said, "Hey, give me a second, please, sir." And he goes, "What?" I was like, "Let me absorb what I'm getting myself into." And every time we'd go out to the airplane doing our ground trainers through the 19th, even going out there to do pre-flights and actually, flying our student missions or our student lines, it never really hit me how important the job or the mission really was. Just because it was still in that cool factor phase. I was still kind of going, I can't believe I'm getting paid to do this. Um, you know, Literally 6 months ago, I was cleaning somebody's teeth because they didn't know how to brush them correctly, or, I'm fighting gingivitis. And now here I am, I'm fighting literally the worst of the worst in the world. And even after I checked out of the 19th, got to the 4th, started flying some, the flagpole lines and all that other stuff, it was still one of those things. I get on that gunship and I'm just in awe of what's going on. I'd watch those gunners, some of the guys that I didn't really have a lot of the younger gunners when I initially started in the 4th. It was always those seasoned guys, staff sergeants and above. Um, just watching them walk through and do, not only their pre-flight, but you know, uh pre-takeoff checklist, the takeoff checklist, all this other stuff, and none of them have that checklist in their hands. And I'm still sitting there with it right there in my hand going, oh, holy shit, I hope I don't mess up this call and call before the nav or not make a call, and so on and so forth. And, these gunners are sitting there running around like chickens with their heads cut off, getting everything knocked out. And I'm sitting there going, okay, the only thing I need to make sure of is before I make this checklist call, they're all seated in the crew rest compartment with their belts buckled. And I just remember that was pounded into me that, Chili and Ed and all those guys had said, if these guys aren't even buckled sitting in that seat, you could get Q3'd for it. And I was like, well, I don't want to mess this up because this is the coolest damn thing in the world. And so, yeah, it goes back to, like I said, Colonel Stoner sitting right there in front of us and going, we're in the business of killing motherfuckers. It wasn't, we're in the business of killing bad guys or terrorists or, this or that. It was motherfuckers. And I was like, is that PC? I mean, is that legit how we talk in AFSOC? I was like, if so, this is going to be fun. And so, it was kind of one of those things that, I didn't have quite the adventures that Coop did, throwing refrigerators out of the back of an airplane. I mean, I think the only thing I inadvertently, which I really didn't inadvertently do it, was Danny's crapping out of the round jettison port. I mean, that was the only thing that I think I really, other than like whiskey 151 flares, that was the only thing I let go out of the airplane because I was too damn scared to screw anything up and not be a part of something greater than me.
Man,
Right.
you remember in Kuwait that one goat herder that lived down the end of the runway? They had that giant satellite dish.
No, but you told me about this
It's
one.
Yeah. So every night, every crew that came in someone on the plane would have used a piddle pack at some point, and they would try and
Oh, ripple.
bombardier that thing through the round jettison port and hit it with the piddle packs. And I had 2 gunners on my crew that just had an affinity for piddle packs. They used them all the time. And I think they're trying to do it on purpose so they could whip out like 3 or 4 or 5 of those things and try and hit that. So I would lay in the bubble and I'd be like, okay, I knew as soon as we crossed this road, you had roughly 8 seconds before we went directly over that radar or that satellite dish. And I'd start doing the countdown. I'm like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, launch, and they'd be whipping them out of the round jettison port before we land. And one night, man, that had been going on for weeks. I'm sure that guy was like walking out every morning going, where the hell are all these things? What are these things? They're everywhere. And he, the gunner, I'm not gonna dime him out or anything like that, but he hit that freaking thing solid. I mean, you just saw that bag mist, all that gelatin inside of it just smear all over the front. Good freaking 8 o'clock in the morning. We're coming home from our mission. And you're like, oh, direct, dude, you got it. I'm pretty sure that guy was probably in there watching the news or something morning. All of a sudden his satellite goes out completely. But yeah, man, they had piddle packs everywhere out there. And like JJ was saying, the dark humor, everybody, whenever we would set off on a mission, I don't know if every crew did this, but pretty much every crew I was on, we'd make some kind of goal for ourselves, what we were going to do. And on that same trip where the refrigerator, because it was mostly evaluators, I think the sensor operator,
So
it was his very first trip, so he was not an evaluator. But the whole rest of the crew is either instructors or evaluators. Well, the co-pilot was also his very first trip too. But it was all stand eval crew. And like when you've been in the squadron a long time, you get a little crusty. Your humor gets really dark. And we said to ourselves on the gun deck, it was like, hey, what's something we want to do? What do we want to accomplish? We're like, well, we got 3 goals. And this might sound really bad, the last goal, but it was like, hey, we want to go rogue gunship, which means we just shoot without permission, we just start shooting shit. And we want to shoot a mosque, because hey, what the hell? We shoot everything else. Why can't we shoot a mosque? And then the third one was to shoot a CNN reporter like Christiane Amanpour, because no matter where she's at, like if she shows up somewhere, I think that's why they call her the angel of death or something, is wherever she shows up, that's where you're going next. That's where the next war is. That's where you're going to be.
Kind of like
It
Jim
always seemed to be
Cantori
like
in
that.
hurricane season.
That's what I was
and
just
it
going to
wasn't
say.
like-
Yes, I was about to say Jim Cantori in Hurricanes down here.
Yeah, that's exactly. Yeah, she's the Jim Cantori of wars. Wherever she shows up, that's where the next war is going to be. And we were getting really sick of going to war. So it was, just a little thing out of spite. But damn it, if we didn't do 2 out of the 3 things on that trip, we didn't kill a CNN reporter or anything like that. But we went rogue gunship one night. We were down in Solder City. And when El Solder was going a little nutty down there and causing a bunch of trouble. And the Army, they're going in across this bridge and they sent 2 Abrams tanks into town. And we're down on the southern end of Solder City. And so these 2 tanks roll in and all the terrorists, the insurgents, start dropping mortars on the top of these tanks. So they back the tanks out and they set up a defilade where they're sitting on either side of this bridge, both Abrams tanks, pointing at the city, but they're not going to shoot because hell, there's mosques and stuff all over the place. And you're not going to touch off a main battle tank right downtown Solder City. So instead they send 3 Bradleys in, and I'm like, that's stupid. I wouldn't want to be in that damn thing. They're dropping mortars on top of the tanks. What do you think they're going to do to the Bradleys? But we were watching, and the 3 Bradleys go across the bridge, and holy crap, if they didn't get a mobility kill on one, like right away, and it happened to be the one in the middle. What the insurgents were doing is they had their mortar pits set up in front by this mosque, which you couldn't really shoot at them because that's the way they would play. They knew our rules. So they'd set up in front of a mosque and you couldn't shoot. And, but they were going down this alleyway off to the right-hand side of the Bradley, and they're taking, like, I think they shot close to 6 RPGs into that Bradley. And yeah, so they were hitting all the reactive armor on the side of it, and we're watching this happen. And we had to call back to the it I don't want to get this wrong, which armored brigade it was. I think it was the 10th or something. But we had to talk to their general. And we had an A-10 guy there that was the JTAC at the actual headquarters with them watching our video feed. But he was trying to tell the general, hey, they're seeing this, let them shoot. And he's like, no, I want to send one of my drones over. You guys can't shoot. I'm not giving you authority to do that until I get eyes on with my drone. I want to see it in better picture than what you guys are sending. And so we just declared inherent right of self-defense and that of others, and put a couple 40 rounds down. And in that alleyway, we didn't. I don't think we got any of those insurgents just because of how narrow the alley was, but the fact that we actually shot and the rounds went off in the alley made them say, okay, screw this. We're not going to keep engaging. And the reason why we had to shoot is because the Bradley that was hit, the road was so narrow, he couldn't get enough deflection on his Bushmaster cannon to shoot down that alley. It kept hitting the building. You'd see him try every damn direction, but it kept hitting buildings. So he couldn't spin his turret. And we got back from doing that. So that's when we went rogue gunship. We got back from that, and Big Daddy was mission commander, and that general was hot. He was pissed. He wanted all of us Q3'd, and then they were able to get that Bradley out, and the crew had shown him the damage, the general the damage, and said if they didn't shoot at those guys, we'd all be dead, because the last RPG they took had breached the side of the hull. I mean, there's nothing left. They kept hitting it in the same spot over and over and over again. So if they would have taken one more hit, it would have been a penetration kill on that tank or on that Bradley and destroyed it and killed that crew and the soldiers inside. Needless to say, we didn't get Q3, and we got a bunch of congratulations. And that JTAC that was up there that kept telling us, he's not going to let you shoot. I mean, he knew. You could hear it in his voice. He was like, I know what you're seeing, guys, but this guy is not going to let you do anything without him giving you permission. The general's just not going to do it, and he wants to see it on his own drone. So, and then, the big Kufa mosque. Are you guys familiar with Solder City? That
Yeah.
big, the holiest of holy mosques is the Kufa Mosque,
Yep.
which is in Solder City, and it's beautiful. It's amazing. And but the insurgents again were using that as a bait station, where they're trying to get people to come in there. And they told us, oh, you can't even shoot anywhere near that thing. If you put a chip in that, the whole entire Iraqi government's going to kick us out of the country. Is going to kick every American out of the country. Well, apparently the army didn't get that message, because they would be shooting mortars at them from inside the mosque, that big Kufa mosque, and they come flying up in their Bradleys and just hammer the hell out of that thing. And I'm like, holy crap, we can't shoot it, but they're shooting the shit out of this thing, man. You can see the 30 millimeter just ricocheting off that thing left and right. I'm like, oh my God, they're kicking the crap out of this thing. But then that night we were working with a bunch of ODA guys, and they were taking some pretty heavy fire, and they're running around in their little those cool ass Jeeps they had, their war wagons, those little dune buggies that they have. And where they're getting it from was like this little tiny mosque, and the insurgents were using that as an ammo dump. And we weren't allowed to shoot mosques. Just, that's not something that you do. You're like, that's never going to happen. Well, apparently when you're working with these particular guys, whatever they tell you to shoot, you shoot. You don't tell them, no, we can't do that. It's like, no, you're not going to get us killed because you don't want to shoot that. You shoot it.
Yeah, because they buy the rounds.
They said, we said, hey, you're taking, the mortars are coming out of this mosque that you're getting, and there's RPG fire that's coming out of the top of the minaret. And they're like, well, shoot it. We're like, you hear the hesitation on the voice of our nav, like, you want us to shoot the mosque? And they're like, yes, shoot the fucking mosque. Blow that thing up. We're not taking any more hits. And we're like, oh my God, we're actually going to get to shoot a mosque. I mean, we were all hesitant. Like, there's no freaking way this is actually going to happen. And they're like saying, are you sending rounds yet? When are you going to send rounds? It's like, okay, well, they authorized it. So yeah, we destroyed that mosque, but it wasn't anything. I mean, yeah, destroying churches is not cool, but they kind of lose their protected status when you start shooting out of them. So, but yeah, we got 2 out of our 3 things on our list accomplished. But we didn't, obviously, I don't think, number 3 would have been doable. We'd all go to jail. So, but it was,
Well,
but that's the dark humor
today's
that you have,
climate, I
your
don't know.
crews. Oh yeah. I mean, the dark humor that you come up with, to entertain yourself. And I remember on one of the trips, they had sent an Air Force psychologist. He was going to write a thesis, and they sent him on a mission with us and with my crew, and I forget which crew it was, but the gun deck, the conversations on the gun deck are not for the faint at
Woo! No,
At all.
they are non-repeatable.
it can yeah, and I mean, if you can live through those conversations and not feel humiliated in some
Molested.
semblance of a way, then your skin now has become naga hide, because that was like Thunderdome back there, dude. You went back there,
Yeah.
plugged in. You might
Yeah.
hear stuff about your mom or your sister or whatever, and
Yep.
it's like, it's all fair game. You can't get upset. It's just conversation. But this psychologist, we had warned him, and we were shooting and stuff, and he plugged into the gun deck while we were shooting. And when you're over here at home and you're training, it's real quiet and professional. And when you're overseas in the actual environment, because you don't know if that's the last mission you're going to do, so why be so uptight? You have no idea. So the conversations are just like what we're having right now, but the guns are going off. We're shooting and we're just having a normal conversation. They're still talking about my mom and shit. I'm like, yeah, dudes, whatever, and they don't even miss a beat. They're like, yeah, gun ready. And so I was doing this thing to your mom. I'm like, yeah, okay, man, and so we got back, and he was supposed to stay with us for like 24 hours. I think he made it 8. So we did the mission. I think that was like 8-hour
That
day. I
bitch
think
pulled
we got back.
shocks and was gone.
He's like,
Yeah. So
"These
we
guys
get
are
back to
so
the
fucked."
dorms, and the dorms were 10 times worse than the fucking airplane, because now we're all playing Halo with all the
Or-
cords run through the building, and we're yelling at each other like, I'm gonna kill you, motherfucker, and in Halo. And
Yeah.
Yep.
this
Well, and not only that,
psychologist said,
it's multiplied because
Huh?
there's not one gun crew now. Now you got 12 apes
no,
back
yeah.
there doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so there's 50 of you on here playing, every room, all the doors are open, everybody's yelling. And he goes, yeah. He goes, I've already come to the conclusion of my thesis. And I was like, yeah, what's that? As I'm playing Xbox. And he goes, you're all psychopaths. Every single one of you are psychopaths. And we're like, what? Really? What do you mean? And he goes,
That's a little unfair.
you-
Sociopath, maybe, but a psychopath,
Yeah.
come on.
Yeah, I'm like, dude, what? He goes, you spend all night killing people and talking about each other's moms and wives, and then you come back here and then you start playing Halo and killing each other in virtual land. You guys are psychopaths. I'm like, all right, cool, dude. I said, are you gonna,
You
stay in
coming
the
back?
bunk tonight? He's like, fuck no, I'm out of here. I'm done. I don't want to spend any more time with you guys. So he left. He didn't make it the full 24 hours.
I'm going back
So-
to LUD so I can go hit the hard rock.
Yeah.
Well, it's just like, when we had to fill out that medical bullshit coming back, and they're like, hey, did you discharge your weapon? Did you see dead bodies? Did you do this? Did you
You
do
just
that?
answered
Yeah.
no, dude. You
No,
just
I
say
answered
no.
yes all the time, because I remember I answered yes, and they literally pulled me aside, and they're like, dude, so you answered yes on this question. We have more questions for you. And I was like, yeah, so what? And he goes, no.
Yeah, do you
Gets
remember
better.
that time that they would make you fill that out, but even if you said no on all of it, you're supposed to get to skip the whole psychiatrist thing.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
instead, they decided everybody's got to go. So I remember going into that thing like, this is bullshit, man. I got to go in here and do this for an hour. Man, that psychiatrist, she was such a head twister that I walked out there going, "Oh, puppies suck, and my dad's an asshole," and just mad at everything. Like,
I got
"Oh, my life
touched as
is
a little
ruined."
boy. But no,
Yeah,
I
puppies are
remember
horrible. My dad's an
I answered
asshole.
yes. And the doc was like, "So how does that make you feel?" And I was like, "I'm really fucking pissed off about it." He goes, "Wait, what?" I was like, "Yeah, I didn't get to kill enough. I didn't get to shoot enough. I didn't get to do this, and this." And he goes, "Wait, hold on."
Yeah,
And he looks and he saw my squadron, 4th SOS. He goes, "Get the fuck out of here." He was like, "What?"
yeah,
He's like, "You
yeah.
guys have something wrong with you because you guys don't kill enough. You don't, you don't get to do all this different stuff." And I was like, "So does this mean I'm okay?" And he goes, "Yeah, just get the fuck out of my office right now." And I kind of walked out. And I had a
I
smile on
forget
my
the
face. I was like, "Hey, I'm playing the game you want me to play, but I'm also being honest as hell because yeah, I didn't get to kill enough this deployment. I killed maybe 15 guys. I wanted to kill 60, 70 of these motherfuckers because they're killing our guys." So it was always one of those things that, well, not only that, if I answer this correctly and I do finally flip out sometime here in the next however many years, well, they can't hold that against me because I answered that questionnaire correctly way back when.
yeah.
You were fair warned. I didn't get to do it enough. Now I'm doing it. No, I don't. Trust me, I don't plan on going down that road. But it's just kind of one of those things. It always cracked me up that they'd have us answer those questions, and it was just like, do you guys not seriously understand our mission? Our mission is to, yes, justifiably put rounds out of the aircraft to kill individuals. But when you walk into the 19th SOS and they say our job is about killing people, or killing bad guys, I should say, and breaking their shit, as the term goes, and you don't get to do it enough, it fucking wears on you. It gets psychologically just where it's like, what the, sometimes I remember that 12v1 crew, my very first deployment, the AC, I won't name his name because he's probably a full bird colonel, if not a general or whatever by now, just because anyhow, um, that whole pre-deployment spin up, he was like, "Dude, it's serious. We're gonna get shot at. We're gonna do this. We're gonna do that. We really need you to make sure that you're on your A game and all this other crap." So I'm sitting there getting built up like, okay, I'm going from a hospital, a dental clinic of all things, to the ultimate freaking warrior on the battlefield. And I've got this AC who's done a trip or two talking this up like I'm about to see Armageddon go down. And we get over to Iraq out there at Balad, and the first 30 days, we didn't even shoot to tweak. It was kind of like, I remember he argued for us to get an air medal because we fixed the computers on the airplane because they were all jacked up. We literally flew like a 1.5, fixed the shooting computers or the targeting computers, and he was like, "I'm trying to get us a single mission air medal because we did this. We made this aircraft back to mission capable." And we're like, "Seriously, dude? Are you fucking metal hounding at this point?" And so it was kind of one of those things that I seriously, and this is where I questioned, did I actually make the right choice coming to AFSOC? Because that 12v1 story, that's a whole nother, we'll go down that if you ask me about it later. But
Yeah,
it was just
no.
one of those things that when I rotated back home and I'm sitting there talking to RG, he was our functional at the time, and I was like, "RG, you ever put me on a crew with this pilot ever again, I'm fucking quitting the 4th." And he looked at me like, "Excuse me, Staff Sergeant?" And I was like, "No, I'm being honest with you, RG. You put me on a crew with this
Yeah.
motherfucker ever again, one of two things is gonna happen. He's not gonna come home, and I'm gonna go to prison, or I'm not coming back." And so he was kinda like, "Okay." And so it was just kind of those things, but it was just like, motherfucker. Just he talked a good game, and then, and I still remember that first shoot, my first combat shoot, because it was pretty damn impressive. And I still remember most of the crew because I ended up showing up late to that one anyhow, because they deployed earlier, and I got there like 2 weeks with, I think it was Kevin Kleppel. He was our lead gun, and Matt Ingle, Captain Ingle was our nav on that one, and Rich Letamaki. We showed up a little bit
Oh,
after the
Rich.
crew had gotten into theater, and so it was just kind of one of those things that it was like, this is already a boondoggle to begin with. Because when we got to Qatar, at first, I was the one going to Balad. Everybody else was going to Afghanistan. And then when Kleppel was like, no, hey, you need to fix this, make this thing work. Those three were going to Balad. And now I was going to somewhere like freaking Syria or something like that. It was like, what part of this do you guys not understand that we're supposed to be going to the same place together? And so, like I said, that boondoggle, like I said, it just snowballed from there, where it ended up when I made that 12v1 patch, and the rest is history. And so, but it was just kind of one of those things that it was just like, I don't know. I always
Yeah.
came back, coming from that medical mindset that you answer the shit as honestly as you possibly can, because if it comes back, like the dude down there that shot up UT way back in the, what was it, the 60s or the 70s.
Yeah, on the water tower.
Yeah, he was all messed up in the head. And I was like, document. And of course, if you
Yeah.
answer correctly, and like when that doc was like, get the fuck out of my office, I was like, I'm winning this game that you guys
Yeah.
are playing, that you're putting into place, because it's stupid as shit. Because all the stuff that we had to go through just to come back home was just like,
Yeah.
hey, I just want to.
A lot of you have a specific experience, whereas like the rest of us, having done aviation right off the hop, we were always looking at that, because I'm much like on the Cade answers, and you never answer the truth on any of those things because you don't want it to jeopardize the here and now. But because you sat on the other side of the fence of medical and seeing the impact of that well after the fact, you were like, well, shit, no, I really need to do this in the here and now. So I think that's
honestly
an
what I told
interesting,
all of us. Yeah, when we would rotate home, and yeah, but when we would rotate home, I always told my crew, the other two crews that I rotated back with, I was like, guys, answer this shit correctly, because they can't. I mean, honestly, if it's one of those things that you come in and you start having alcohol problems, you start doing this, you start doing that, you start going down some dark roads, your supervisors start, noticing some things that are going on with you at work, and so on and so forth. That's why you answer these questions, because then they go, okay, we missed this step somewhere here on his reintroduction back into life. And so I was always telling guys, and so, like how you guys are like, oh, no, we always answered no. And it was like, no, answer yes.
No.
Because
I answered. Yeah.
Yeah, because at that point, because if they see no, but yet you're still sitting there going, man, that was, because I remember when I got back to the 4th after I had to go to Germany, we got this young lady that came in. She did her first rotation as a gunner, and she went fucking ape shit. I think they sat her down halfway through one of her deployments and was like, yeah, you're no longer going to be in gunships. In fact, we're actually kicking you out of the Air Force, because she started trying to lead one of our other gunners down that path of, this is wrong, trying to be, that holier than thou, mightier than thee type thing. And so it was kind of one of those things. I was like, but this is why you answer that question here correctly or honestly, because then you can sit down with somebody and you can actually give your side of looking at that. And we weed out those individuals that don't really need to be there. And hey, that's cool. I'm glad you're honest with me. We'll talk to your leadership, so on and so forth. Get back to you on this one. Maybe we pushed her off to be a loadmaster on a regular C-130, or she became contracting, or she went this or that. So the Air Force is still getting their money's worth out of her or that individual. And so that's why I always vouch for you guys as saying, no, answer that shit correctly. You say yes, that you were pissed off that you didn't get to shoot your gun. Yes, you saw bodies, because even you guys in the booth, Shipley, you can attest to this. You guys saw that stuff. You saw, like Coop was talking about with the torso toss. You saw that. Us on the radios, us monkeys in the back, we heard about it, and we're sitting there cheering it on and just laughing it up like, oh yeah, that dude went 30 meters. Sweet. Okay, that's a record here. Now, you guys actually seen that. That's, you're seriously putting some, and I've thought about this many a times of, damn, I was a part of something that was obviously greater than me. We killed people. I was a part of that kill chain, because I had to do that checklist with everybody, but I also had a voice in that, in saying that if this was right or wrong. And and the reason why I say that is because, again, that 12v1 crew, that shit came up. We were supporting some SEAL team out of Shark Base, and as they rolled into Ramadi, the little bastards set off an IED on one of the Bradleys or whatever it may have been. And the next thing I know, we see this little bastard squirting away from the target area, or from where the area where the IED went off. And our FOCO, not going to mention his name just because I don't want to make bad, because love the man, respect him like crazy. Kind of was countering what the pilot was saying, because again, this is that pilot that was the 12v1, and we were kind of like, oh shit, these guys just set off an IED on our team, our brothers that are down there putting that shit on the line. We need to shoot this dude, because they had those hours to where you can't be outside, you can't be doing this, anything like that. Curfew hours, there we go, that's the word I was looking for. Because it was like 02 local there in Iraq, and we've got this little bastard running down the street after an IED just went off. And so the fight was going back and forth between our pilot and our FOCO if we actually need to shoot the guns or not. And I remember the FOCO kind of came up and said, well, what if this is just a kid that happened to be sleeping on the streets, and the IED going off scared the shit out of him, so now he's running away? And so I'm sitting back there as a load, and I'm like, oh shit, what if that is the truth? I can't see anything. I'm not seeing any screens. I'm hearing very limited talk on the radios, so on and so forth. And it kind of went back and forth between those two. They kind of had the who's got the bigger dick contest, even though AC has the override. And it came back from the ground party that they're like, no, you guys need to shoot him. And so as we kind of said, is like, they're buying the rounds. They say that, and they give us the initials. We start putting rounds out. So we started popping out some 40s. And I remember our sensors on that one was JD Dilson and Larry Mowry. And I think Mowry had the helm that night on IR, because obviously at this time the TV still sucked. And Mal's sitting there trying to put rounds out, and he's leading this dude by 6 feet. And by the time the 40 impacts the ground, it's 8 feet behind this dude. This dude, honestly, I think if he was on the Iraq track team, he would have won gold consecutively in every event possible.
Isn't
It's
it
amazing.
how fast they are?
Yes.
Straight up a mountain in man dresses and
exactly.
Adrenaline's a powerful drug. It's just
Yeah,
like
now you got
human
40
body's
Mike going up
cocaine.
behind you. So Mal's sitting there
It's
trying
the
to nail this,
motivation.
and he 90s it into an alleyway, and Mal's still sitting there putting the rounds out, and he's leading him. Like I said, he's not off left or right or anything like that. He's literally leading this dude. And I think by the second round, after this dude went down this alleyway, I think one round did end up actually kind of skewering off, if I remember correctly. And it hit, like, how they had the gas tanks on top of their house or whatever, or the rooftops or anything like that.
Yeah.
Mal nailed one of these things. And all I saw in the bubble was this big fucking fireball. And I'm blinded out. So now I can't see shit. I can't even pull my MVGs up to sit there and try and help kind of, see what's going on or anything like that. Cause Mal just made this hellacious fireball, and it was gorgeous. Don't get me wrong. And I think it was 1 or 2 rounds later, I think it was the next round he put out, he actually fragged the dude's legs. So it slowed him down finally. The next round that went out, Mal put right through his torso. And so it was kind of one of those things. Dude was dead. He was laying out there in this alleyway. And the conversation spun up again between the FOCO and the pilot. And they were talking about, we just killed an innocent fucking kid. This was coming from the FOCO. And it was just kind of like, oh shit, did we do that? And I remember Kevin Kleppel being back there going, hey, load, take this with a grain of salt, what you're listening to right now on the radio. And I think what he was trying to tell me was, yes, listen to the conversation, get what's going on, get, that dynamic that's happening of why we do what we do. But let's get the full story going. And so he wasn't telling me to say, yeah, the FOCO was right or the pilot was right, and vice versa. Either one of them were wrong. And so it's kind of one of those things. We did our job. We ended up talking the ground party onto the body. Excuse me. before they even hit the target area. And as we were talking them on, we were sitting there, you have that constant communication back and forth, so nothing's happening. These guys aren't getting ambushed or anything like that. And I remember it was Engel was the nav, and so he was sitting there talking. He's like, "Yeah, you're about 10 mics away from walking on top of the body, so on and so forth, blah blah blah. 8, 6, 5, 4, 3," and it was like, boom, the team went silent, and all we hear is, "Oh shit," from what I remember. And we tried to get comms with them again. And we're like, "Hey guys, whatever their call sign was, come back." We did that 2 or 3 times, and next thing you know, when they finally came back on comms, they're like, "Good shoot, good shoot, good shoot." And we're like, "Wait, what?" And this dude had more detonators in his hands to set up as this team was going further into Ramadi and so on and so forth. So it was like, okay, we just got vindicated on our shoot. And so that kind of made me go, okay. And I'm not sitting there trying to fault the FOCO for going, no, maybe this is just some scared kid, so on and so forth. I see where he was trying to come from. He was trying to play the devil's advocates, or maybe that's truly how he felt. I don't know. But it was just kind of one of those things that it was really weird because, again, that 12v1 dynamic was already set in place. If you were 1 minute late for the bus, your ass was left. But if you left at that same 1 minute and left the pilot, you got your ass chewed for it because I'm the AC. You got to wait for me, but I don't have to wait for you type shit. And so that was the problem. Well, anyhow, as the team went in and they hit their target, we got called off because we had to go tank, get some gas. And so I remember it was Big Daddy's crew rolled in and they took over for us. And so as we're driving off and Big Daddy's crew took over, all hell broke loose. And these guys, Big Daddy's crews just starts fucking wailing on Ramadi. And they're sitting there shooting left and right. And we're like, well, we can't do anything about turning around and going back and helping them because we've got to go get gas or we're going to be Joker, as you guys were talking about last episode. And so we're sitting there going, motherfuckers, we got 1 kill out of this. And right now they're already racking up 8, 9, 10, and they're only 5 minutes into their shoot. And so we go off and we hit the tank. And it was like, all right, maybe they'll push us back over to Ramadi with the SEAL team. No, it didn't happen. They pushed us off to some bullshit ops. I think we were watching the Haditha Dam or something like that because there was some stuff going on. It was like, son of a bitch, And so it was just kind of one of those things that first deployment for me was just such a dick beating that I was like, maybe this isn't what I expected it to really be. And
Well, I think a lot of that, JJ, is there's a difference, so it really depends on what kind of crew you're going out on. I've only ever had one bad crew, but the majority of them, it's that, like, my generation of guys, we didn't even question shit like that. Like, is that a good guy or a bad? We were told nobody's supposed to be out at night. So if they are, they're bad guys. They all know this shit. Stay in that. But I think that's a generational thing. It's different now. I just, none of my guys or my generation of gunship guys ever thought that way. And I think the big difference is that, when I first got to the 4th, there were still dudes that had been in Vietnam that were still in the 4th SOS.
Right.
And they're only there for a couple of years. But I remember, I don't even know if Bob Heflin's still alive, but he was one of the Vietnam era gunners. And he would sit on the back patio and he always smoked little tiny misty cigarettes, the chick cigarettes. And I walk out there and I'd be like, Master Sergeant Heflin, why are you smoking those? And he'd pull one out and go, why, you want one? I'm like, no. He goes, that's why. Nobody bums my cigarettes. And I was like, oh, okay. Makes sense to me. Nobody ever asks you. But you still had those kind of guys. And if you even showed 1 ounce of like humanity there, they were on you like white on rice, man. They'd be like, no, get rid of that humanity. You don't need that here.
Yeah.
So I mean,
and I think that's what Kevin was trying to do for me, Chief Kleppel, I should really actually call him because he deserves that. Was that he was trying to say, hey, JJ, this is a pissing contest between those two right now. The man had, and Kleppel knew where he was coming from because I think the rest of the gun crew was Frank Garcia, that crazy motherfucker. And then we had,
and Kevin had already done it. He was on my crew when we shot in Kosovo, so he'd already. already been there,
yeah,
done that.
so,
That
I
was his
mean,
very first deployment too.
yeah,
So
and then so like I said, Frank Garcia, and then we had God, I can see them. I just can't think of their names right now at the moment. But
that's
some
not
other guys.
important anyway.
Do I?
It's not important anyway.
Well, no, I guess not. But to me, it was always one of those things. I took pride with trying to remember who my crews were, and just because coming from the outside in, and because even documenting that first deployment, I look back on it now and I was like, man, I really did a bad job of that. Because after that, I learned my lesson of like how hey, this is how you do stuff and so on and so forth. Just kind of remember. I wish honestly that I would have kept like a diary, just because it would have been cool. But excuse me, I just remember one of the gunners on that crew though. He came to us from 53s, and he was arguing one night with Kevin and Frank about having to use the checklist. And it didn't matter how many times, how many different ways Kevin and Frank or Chief and Frank would tell him, use the fucking checklist. He just would argue because they didn't do it in 53s. And I was like, oh my gosh, I got so tired of hearing that. That's when I learned how to turn ISO off, just so I didn't listen to the gunners piss on each other. And so it was kind of one of those things that I didn't turn it off very much on that trip, just because being the new guy and wanting to make sure I made a good impression to where my name wasn't shit in the squadron, because I knew 12 other individuals were relying on me to do my job, that they got to go home to their wife and kids, just like the guys on the ground relied on us as a crew to do the same thing. And so it was just kind of one of those things that I just wanted to make sure I didn't fuck up. And I can't say that I didn't fuck up on that trip, but I wasn't near as bad as what I've heard from some of the other gunners that we've had in the squadron, or loadmasters, I'm sorry.
Right.
Just because we have had that one where I'm not going to name his name, because I mean, unfortunately, this kid didn't deserve to be in the gunship from the get-go, just because I remember as soon as he checked out of the 19th and came to the 4th, we had a squadron commander's call with, of all people, Rodriguez, J-Rod, and he asked for the newest loadmaster fresh out of the schoolhouse. And this kid raised his hand. He couldn't even come up with, I think it was either the flap or the landing gear malfunctions. And I was like, dude, you just got out of the 19th a week ago. You can't do this shit. And so it was just kind of one of
Well,
those things.
some people can't perform in public, man.
Well, and I
Mhm.
get
They're
that,
on the
but
spot.
Performance anxiety, bro. You're in front of 400
Wasn't
people
this
in the
guy?
squadron.
Wasn't me.
Coop, this was also the same guy. You had to go clean his dorm room when he deployed.
Oh yeah, fuck that guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you. So now
Yeah,
we
fuck
get
that
it in
guy.
context that this is that
Yeah,
individual. So it was just kind of one of those things that I didn't want to be that guy. I wanted to be what Beaker was trying to. I mean, literally, I'd been in the squadron what 6-7 months, and Beaker was already trying to get me to be an instructor, and I was like, I'm still in the cool factor of being in the gunship, and you want me to sit there and teach the next generation of loadmasters coming through the schoolhouse? I thought it was great. I was honored by that, but I didn't feel I was prepared because I was still learning myself. And so
well,
that's
it's good that you didn't do it because you weren't prepared. You
no,
weren't ready.
exactly. And unfortunately, I kind of fucked that up
Just
anyhow
wasn't there for you,
because
JJ. It just wasn't going to happen.
no, I know,
just-
no, because I fucked that up anyhow, because I remember I was supposed to go out to North or South Carolina and do an FEF on an aircraft, and I went in and did my open close book for my check ride, because the night before or 2 nights before I did my check ride, and they're like, hey, you're going on this TDY to do an FEF, and I was like, what the hell's an FEF? And I got in there, and I think I failed my open book or my closed book. I can't remember which one it was, but it was like one.
yeah,
question.
that was tactical. You did that shit on purpose.
No, I did not, because again, coming from the career field I came from, it was like, you don't fail because it's somebody's life. And so it was like, Oh fuck, because I was supposed to leave literally.
Cleaning teeth isn't that's life and death, bro. Come on.
Yeah. Well, no. I'm just talking about in medical in general. If you have somebody
No, I
code
know
blue
what
on you.
you're
But
talking
anyhow,
about.
yeah, you're still right. But it was just kind of one of those things that
You're fighting gingivitis, not
yes,
fixing
I
hearts.
did.
So
Bad breath. Come on now. But no, and I did. I fucked that up. And when I got that Q3 for something so simple and so minuscule, I was devastated. I was like, man, I let all you guys down. All you guys that were there before me. I
that
was like,
must have been when I was at the CRW because I don't
no,
remember your Q3.
because I think you were on leave or something like that because Chili was at the group with you, and Chili was pissed that I didn't come in there to test when he was there because he even told me, and I was like, dude, I just wanted to get this done because I was supposed to go on this TDY to do this FEF. And he goes, you have a week to get this accomplished. Why did you rush this? And I was like, I have my head up my ass. That's the reason why. And so he was kind of like, you fucking moron. And then of course, like I said, going back to doing that, and of course, Jeremiah was actually the flight chief at the time, or NCOIC, and so he had to call Beaker up to go take my FEF. I was like, Beaker, I'm so sorry. And he just kind of looked at me like, you fucking idiot. I'm sitting here requesting you to be our next instructor and you just fucked it up. And I was like, yeah, I did. And I'm deeply sorry for it. But that was the type of guy I was, is I did not want to screw up. I wanted to be perfect. And once that happened, I think I relaxed a lot. And I kind of became, I felt in my way, a little chill as far as some of the mistakes that were made with some of our guys. Not that I would sit there and hammer them against the wall, but it'd be like, all right, you fucked up. Learn from that. Let's make yourself better. How do you make yourself better from here on out? Get with those instructors. Get out there and get ground trainers done. Get this, get that. But going back to that one individual who fell asleep not once, but twice in the bubble over a combat op, I was done. I was livid. And that was just because that was what happened to him in combat. We're not even talking about home station shit. Home station stuff was
Yeah.
like, how the hell do you fuck this up? Commander said, don't do this. What did you do? You did that.
Well, in the 90s when I got there, we didn't get paperwork. You had an option. You chose
Yeah.
it's funny when you bring it up now, but you chose, hey, do you want paperwork or do you want wall-to-wall counseling?
Yeah.
And you go, well, what the hell is wall-to-wall counseling? And they're like, well, is that your choice? And you're like, I guess I'll take that. And they took you into one of the back rooms and just bounced you off all four walls and said, yeah, you understand? Like, yeah, I got it, man. It's all
Yeah.
good. And
Literally
but
beat that shit
it's
into
funny
you.
too when you talk about the open and closed book test. When I came back from the CRW, I had written all four of those, the A and B and the black and gray, and the open closed both options. Wrote those in like 2006 when I was at the group.
Right.
I came back in 2012 and I'm at the 19th going through school and to get requalified, and I take my tests, and they're the same fucking things, dude. That nobody's even made one change to them, and I didn't
I
even have
couldn't.
to open my damn books, man. I just breezed right through them. I was like, I wrote these things 6 years ago, but that was like Belden was saying. Everybody from my generation, you had to memorize those publications. You
Yes.
had to remember chapter verse because that was your Bible.
You had to
And
remember
when I got
page.
back,
We lost you.
page, chapter, verse. It's and now when I got back, everybody was getting iPads, and I'm
Yeah.
like, what the fuck is this? And they're
Well,
like,
dude,
oh, that's how
because
you're going to carry your pubs now.
I remember the
And
conversation you and I
what I
had.
watched,
Oh, I was gonna say, I remember the conversation you and I had as I was going to Germany and you were coming back home, um, of what was going on because I wanted to give you that heads up of like, hey, dude. And then that's
yeah,
when we kind of started going down that road of when you got diagnosed with PTSD, and I kind of explained some stuff to you that I was going through, and I was just like, nah, man, I can't. That can't be me. And then literally, no shit, about what, a year and a half later, I'm sitting there in the fucking shrink's office in Ramsey, and I'm like, Coop was right. And so where I'm going with that is you guys, you, Chili, Jeremiah, I didn't really have a lot of interaction with Jimmy O'Connor. But him, Beaker, all you guys set that standard Nissen that this is what you guys need to know because that's what you guys were taught. And when I got there, understanding, not because I haven't seen that stuff from the outside in, because as medical or as dental, I mean, you had the schoolhouse, you had your CDCs, and then you were done. You didn't have to really study for anything anymore after that. It was kind of one of those things that I really saw from where you guys were standing, like you were talking about, knowing where, when, how, what part of the -1 that stuff was, knowing the page that it was on was instrumental to you being able to answer whatever emergency you were running or doing this or doing that. Because I remember Chili ran me through it on the diverter panel of all things. I remember we were sitting there and he said, "All right, what do you know about the diverter panel?" And I was like, "The what?" He kind of looked at me and was like, "Are you serious right now?" And I was like, "Yeah, what the fuck's a diverter panel?" And he goes, "Open up your -1." And so obviously I looked in the index to see where the diverter panel was, found the one little, it was a paragraph on the lower right side of whatever page it was. That I don't remember, but it was the lower right side of the page and it read the diverter panel. And I read through it. And I looked up at him. He was like, "So what did you read?" And I was like, "I don't know." He was like, "Read it again." So I read it again. He goes, "What did you read?" I was like, "Fuck if I know, Chili. What do you want me to know that I got to relay to you on this one?" And he goes, "Okay, fine." So he draws a schematic of how the diverter panel works and then started kind of putting all that knowledge into it from that paragraph. I was like, "Oh, okay. Now I got it." I was like, "Why didn't you just do that the first time instead of expecting me to read how whoever the genius was that wrote the -1 on this put it, because I mean, Chili simplified it for me." So from then on out, I was like, that was my number one question asked the newer loads was, "What do you know about the diverter panel?" Because I don't remember Steve McClung or Angelo Pearson really going into depth on
No,
that. I remember
they didn't.
Angelo hammered the shit out of me on flaps and landing gear because that was where I was struggling, and I wasn't going to make it through the 19th until I got those two down. And so I got the landing gear, and then it was flaps. But again, that's also when I found out that I'm a visual learner, not the damn read it and how you go. But that was one of those things that I think, if I remember correctly, anytime we got a new loadmaster in the squadron after I took over as NCOIC was, what do you know about the diverter panel? And a lot of times I
Yeah,
had that deer in the headlight look, and I was like, "All right, cool. I get to teach you something." And I was proud of that because Chili taught me something. I was like, "We need to make sure this is something that we continue to hand down to our newer guys because it was very important. It was a very important system, even though it was just a small little 8 by 10 inch panel area in the
with
empennage."
a with a no leak limitation.
Yeah, no leak. Oh, don't get me on that crap because me and Hydro
Yeah.
became good friends when I would see just the smallest bit of hydraulic fluid on any line. I was like, "Hey, call Hydro out." And they're like, "What now?" Engineers hated me for that shit. But I was like, "Oh, this is a no leak limit. We can't have any hydro on that." And then of course, as I
So
started getting a little bit
yeah,
older and understanding the gunship a little bit better, I understood that it doesn't matter what this bitch does, she's gonna leak. It's just a matter of how bad she
right.
leaks. So,
So
but
one
no,
of
that
the
I
coolest
just
thing
go ahead.
that I saw, I'm sorry. The coolest thing that I saw or that had happened to me when I was going through the 19th, Chili was supposed to give me my check and we, broke because, the gunship broke all the time. And he grills me and everything like that. And then they're like, "Okay, we're done for the night." And I'm like, "Okay, cool. It's Friday night. I get to go home." And he's like, "Nope. I know where you live." He goes, "I know where you live. You're coming to my house." And I was like, "What?" He lived like 5 blocks north of me in Whispering Pines. And so I showed up to his house and Chili's like, we did like 2 or 3 hours in his garage of just beating the shit out of me on everything. But it was one of those things that when I showed up for my check ride the next week, he was like, he was still kicking my ass but it wasn't because I didn't know it. It was just kind of the welcome. You know what you're doing. And I remember I raised the ramp and door. We're in hot cargo, and I raise the door up, and he loses his mind. And I'm like, what the hell's going on? And he is just yelling and bitching at me, with that Chili Palmer face, like that, just always serious all the time. And I was like,
If he
oh
cracked a
shit,
smile,
I'm A1.
his face would break.
I'm like A1C nobody, and I don't know what the shit's going on. And he's like, you just Q3'd. And I'm like, oh shit, what did I do? And he's like, you know what you did? And I'm like, I have no idea. And I think one of the gunners was Jamie Schuler. And she's like, what did he do? He hadn't done anything. He just raised the ramping door. And he's
You
like,
didn't do the
you
walk,
close the
did you?
door and he goes, you close the door with my sandwich in it. And I was like, is that a note? Is that a note, warning or caution? Like, I had no idea. And he's like, shut up, get out there and do your job. And I was like, okay. I had no idea he wasn't serious until then. And then after my check was like basically done, he had already knocked everything out on the Form 8. They make me do lanyard fire for gun 3. And I was like, I was scared to death because I'm like, I'm gonna Q3 on a fucking job that's not even mine. And like, and I'm like, I load a 105 and I close the breech and I get in there and like, ready, fire. And I'm like, oh, I don't know. I hit the wrong fucking button. I didn't hit like stoves, like whatever. And I forget who the gunner was, but he looks at me and he's like, you do realize you can't Q3 on a job that's not yours, right? I was like,
Unless it's safety, then
Yeah, I was gonna say,
right.
if it's
But it was
safety,
just
you're
one of those
fucked.
like, I don't have the checklist for, gun 3 lanyard fire in front of me. I have no idea.
Hey,
And at
but
the end,
Crusades a good save.
when he, right. But
yeah,
when he
I'm
ripped
just gonna retroactively Q3 you for that one right now because that sounds unsafe as shit.
hey, bro,
So
hey, dude, I went permanently to NIF in 2014. So it's
Was that
fine.
when you fucked it up
what
doing
is.
the fucking bow shoot or whatever it was?
No, that was fucking 09, 08, 09.
Yeah, because I just
And
remember you
no,
showed up in that damn sling, and I was like, Justin, what the hell did you do? You're like, I was hunting.
I ripped my bicep anchor out of the shoulder girdle, and I had just gotten home from Afghanistan,
Yep.
and I like drew my bow for the first time in like 3 months, and like something crawled up the back of my neck, and not thinking I was at full draw, and I rotated my shoulder and I ripped the fucking anchor out.
Yep.
It was a
That's
good
right.
time, but I killed a fucking deer doing it, so it was cool.
I do remember you telling me that because I was like, hey, at least you got the deer.
I'll never forget because
after-
y'all go ahead.
oh, I was gonna say as soon as you're done there, I'm gonna get this more and more comical because JJ took it down the serious road.
Well,
there.
he did.
I
got
apologize.
I got a
You
funny
know, that
ass
was
story.
one of
I
those
just
things that
remembered.
even the
Y'all-
4 gunners fucked up is out of all of them, Jetty. And I loved the impression you gave of Jetty on that last episode.
What
But
are
it
you
was
doing,
just one of those things that
Buffskin?
I expected more comedy out of him. The Squadron's Leprechaun was not as funny as I remember him because I remember we were standing down in the hooch one night or one day or afternoon, wherever the hell it was. And it was, JJ, I'm going to take you out to the bar. I'm like, to the bar? What the hell's a bar? And he's like, fuck you. Anyhow, he's like, and I'm going to get into a fight with you. And I'm like, okay, you're going to get into a fight with me. Why? And he goes, it doesn't matter. He goes, because either way, you're going to look like a bitch or you're going to look like an asshole. And I was like, Jetty, I'm not going to fight you. I have respect for you, sir. All this other stuff. And he's like, no. Fuck that shit. He's like, you're going to look like a asshole if you beat this 5'0" little dude. Cause here I am, 240 pounds standing in a fucking flight suit, 6 foot tall. And he's like, so you're going to look like an asshole if you beat my ass, or because you don't hit me, you're going to look like a bitch because I beat your ass being a 5'0" beating your grilled fucking looking ass. And I was like, oh God, Jelly, come on, Jetty, please, seriously. And so it was always the one thing I remember about that was that he always wanted to take me to the bar to get into a fight with me, not with anybody else. but with me, just so I would look either like an asshole or a bitch. I was like,
Yeah, Chris was he used to crack me up because
Yeah.
he would do stuff to try and get you get your goat. Like when we lived in Commando Village, he was just down the street from me a little ways, and he walked his little corgi dog all around the neighborhood. And he had to, like, I don't know if he really had the hots for my wife, but he acted like, oh wow, yeah, what's your wife doing with you? You're a loser and all that stuff. She's too good for you or whatever.
dude, I'll say
And
that.
so
Tracy's way
every
too
time
good
he
for
was
you.
out, every time we'd be outside, he'd be walking his dog. He'd stop and chat. And so
This episode of Death on Call is powered in part by ROE Graphics and Apparel, Rules of Engagement Graphics, run by Gunship guys. They crank out killer vinyl decals, hood graphics, perforated window wraps, full vehicle treatments, cornhole board wraps, banners, custom signs, shirts, and patriotic military themed designs that scream pride and durability. Think distressed American flags. Thin line variants, gun motifs, branch specific gear, and plenty of AC-130 gunship artwork, from J model orbits to U model tail shots in 105 and 40 mic rounds. Perfect for repping that Spectre, Spooky, Ghost Rider heritage on the road, at home, or on the tailgate. Built tough in Florida for the warriors who live it. Gear up at roe-graphics.com. Use promo code DOC15, one word, at checkout for 15% off your order. ROE Graphics, because your setup deserves rules of engagement that demand attention and respect. Big thanks to another Gunship Connected crew supporting the fight. Appreciate you all tuning in and supporting these brands.
We lost Coop.
Oh, we lost him in
Fucking
the middle of the story.
long
Damn. His
in the middle.
freezer must have kicked on.
No, he said it was his son playing video games.
Yeah, blame it on the kid. That's how it always works.
I'll message him.
All right. Yeah.
No.
In the meantime,
I
don't know if I never experienced it, so I want to hear about the experience, JJ, of floor loading 40.
Oh my
Actually
gosh.
combat floor loading 40.
Dude,
and what that's like.
I honestly don't know, because I mean that was 17, and what the U models were retired in 20. I don't know if we were the last crew to do that combat combat load. But it was one of those things that, coming from a loadmaster standpoint, I was like, holy shit, we're doing this. And just remembering that, you're loading 16 additional 40 rounds per can, 10 of them, so 160 total. And just trying to remember where the hell to find that paperwork or those numbers. Because I remember we had it all down in our checklist and everything else. And so it was one of those things that when we finally got to do it, I was like, no way. I get to do a full combat load. And so, we got the 105 on there. We got the 3025. And then of course, what is it? The 256 plus the 160. And so I was just kind of like, holy shit. And not only that, I wasn't in the bubble that night. I was actually getting to load a gun, or I was brass puller that night. And so it was just kind of one of those things that was like, wow, is this for real? Is this what we're getting to do? Because we didn't know anything about it until we stepped for that mission that night. And so we go through the brief, and they're like, yeah, this is what you guys are doing tonight. And this is what you're taking. We're like, are you serious? And they're like, and don't show up back here with a round.
With ammo to
There should
download.
be- yeah. Everything should be you downloading brass. And so it was really one of those things that it took me a second. I mean, at this point, this is what, my 7th deployment. And so getting to do that, I was like, wait, I remember the days in the Joff and Fallujah and all that stuff, because I think I wasn't there in the squadron at Fallujah, but I'd heard about it because I've got a lot of Marine buddies that were a part of that. And then the Joff was when we had the 3 gunships, Winchester, and then we had the 4th one sitting on the ramp ready to go, or one of the 3 ready to go. And they were like, hey, index, or not index, but hey, we don't need you guys because you guys did a hell of a job right now. And so it was kind of one of those things like, fuck, I missed out on some really cool shit. And so when they're like, yeah, they're going to be floor loading 40. And I was like, sweet. Because at that point, I think I even told whoever the gunner was, the other gunner, that I wanted to do the Form F because I wanted to be able to sit there and say, yes, I did the combat load. I calculated for this and did that. Because I mean, as a loadmaster, I mean, that was our bread and butter is making sure the airplane was within limits and what we could do and so on and so forth. And I think we even took off with like 25 to 30K in the tanks. So of course we're automatically hitting a tanker as soon as we get in the air. And I remember we got down there and we started working our op. And I remember one thing that kind of stuck out was if you see a body, if you see a person, you are not allowed to engage that truck. And we're like, what? And we're like, it could be some innocent dude that got kind of forced into driving these trucks for these guys. And so we don't want to, that collateral damage type stuff that was going to go on. But we're kind of thinking like, well, if he's still driving a truck for these assholes, he's guilty. Again, going back to the way we thought as gunship guys was, no, you fucked up. You're in the wrong spot at the wrong time. So sad for you, so to speak. And so we got down there, and unfortunately enough, we didn't see any outside of the trucks. I mean, if they were in the trucks asleep when we shot it, the guy got whacked. I'm sorry. Please forgive me, so to speak. But at the same time, he didn't know it. And so as we started kind of pounding away, I think we started with the 40.
There we go.
There
What
you
the-
are.
Thanks,
Hey, get some better
JJ.
internet.
You
You make
used up
six
all my
figures a
time.
year. But so as we start kind of plugging away, it was one of those things. I think we
God, is he being serious again?
no. I'm talking about when we shot the shit out of ISIS.
They're talking about
doing-
floor loading 40 Mike.
Yeah, floor.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I think we sparingly used the 25 just because it was like, well, really, what is the 25 going to do against a fuel tanker, so to speak, other than start a fire? And so I think we would hit it with a 40 and then 25 round would go off and then hit it with a 105. I mean, I'm sitting there back there with the crowbar because I was like, there's no way in hell I'm going to catch these 105s and try and pull them out. So I'm sitting there yanking them out, hitting the parachute door, just having a blast, no pun intended. And I think we literally at 3 hours of that mission was just us nonstop, just boom, 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 boom. And it was great because there'd be times where we'd get that direct on the truck and you'd get the flash through the 105, the boot. And it was just kind of like, oh, we got one on that one. And, and we're all sitting there back in the back cheering and so on and so forth. And of course, I think we went uncoupled obviously that night because we didn't want you Evos getting excited and shit, popping off at us. And next thing we know, we're dumping flares everywhere. And, but the funny thing was, well, I don't know if it was really funny. But obviously in Syria, we were working kind of in one of those handshake deals with the Russians because the Russians were there supporting the Syrians. And, we were kind of like, well, do these guys know that we're going to be doing this shit out in Southeast Syria or wherever the hell it was we were specifically at? And they were kind of like, yeah, they kind of have an understanding of that stuff. And so we're like, all right, as long as they stay the fuck away, we'll be good. They'll be good. We won't have to worry about, going to town, which there's no going to town with a Su-27 or MiG-31 or anything like that versus a gunship. And so as we're sitting there just plugging away, I think it was more towards the end of the night, and we're sitting there just schwack, schwack, schwack. Everything's going off, and we've got empty can after empty can of those floor loaded 40s. The next thing we know, we start getting a ping. I can't remember if it was the weapon search or the radar or the weather radar from the MiG or the Russian fighter. He started hitting us on the southeast side of his orbit as we're coming on our southwest side of our orbit. It was kind of like ping, he's 60, 80, 70 miles away or something like that. And then every time we'd circle around to our orbit, he'd circle around do the same thing. But this time he was 10 miles closer. 10 miles closer. 10 miles closer. And I remember everything that we did kind of, with our TTPs and that the AFTTP that you guys were talking about, Luke, with or in the last one, was these guys have look down, shoot down missiles at 30, 40 miles away. And I'm sitting there going, but these motherfuckers start getting in within 30 miles. I don't want to be here. And I can't remember if we brought it up. It was Mark Gatto was our AC. I was like, hey, if these guys are at 30 miles, should we really be within range of these dudes? And they're kind of like, yeah, because there's kind of that silent handshake deal that they won't shoot at us. But it was like, at the same time, this was when Trump had just gotten elected. So it was like Obama was kind of dying down on his presidency. So it was like, does Russia really want to try and fucking start something with Obama being there just to kind of say, hey, we got something out, and then go, hey, okay, Trump's in office. We're not going to fuck with you guys anymore. And so I think in the back of our minds, even on the gun deck, because it was, damn, Kyle Palmer was one of the guns. Kyle, I can't remember his last name. And then it was Joe. See, I suck with names anymore nowadays, but we were all sitting there kind of just talking about it as we're on the gun deck. It was like, these guys keep getting closer and closer every time we come around on that side of the orbit. Well, luckily, the Air Force was smart enough to put a couple of F-22s out on the western side of Iraq for us, for as like top cover, so to speak. And as these guys got in within, I think it was like 30 miles, they were like, okay, I think it's time to call the Raptors in. And those dudes, they couldn't get there fast enough. And as soon as I think the Russian came around on his southeast side of his orbit, and he pinged that radar and he picked up those 22s, he fucking jetted west. And it was just like,
Yeah.
oh, that dude, he knew what was coming his way, and it was great. And so I'll throw much props to the F-22 at that point, because it was just kind of one of those things. It was like, we got to continue doing our thing. We finished out shooting, like I said, that 300, or I'm sorry, that 100 rounds of 105, that 416 of 40, and that 3,000 of 25. That was the greatest download in my entire career in the gunship, was because I was glad to drag that 40 bag from, sitting in the wheel well right underneath every parachute to the ramp, stacking every 105 up on the ramp, and letting those, not only our ammo guys, our weapons guys, but even our maintenance guys see that is what happened that night, because they all worked in conjunction with us to make that shit happen. And like I said, at the end of the night, I think Mark Gatto came back and told us, he was like, yeah, dude, we attributed 15% of the destruction of ISIS black market oil that night alone. And it was just kind of like,
Damn.
holy fuck. If you really think about in the numbers of things, we're talking millions of dollars of oil. And it was just kind of one of those things, because I think with Mark being a academy grad, he kind of put that mission up as one of these things that I can't remember the name of the award that he got from the academy for it, because it was like a distinguished award for academy graduates or something like that. And he put that up as the mission that kind of did that. Because we ended up having another one that was really cool too on that same trip, but that one was what got him that award. And it was just kind of like,
Right.
holy shit. And it was very prestigious, almost like having the Columbian trophy for us in the Air Force. I think the fourth, we won it once or twice, something like that. Coop, you'd be able to speak on that one a little bit better.
I don't know. I was always deployed, dude. Anytime
It doesn't matter of us all being at home, but I know we got it at least once. But that's kind of what the similarity is
every time,
that's what
man.
it was like. And so for him to be able to get that, and because of what we did that night, it was amazing. And so, John, as you were asking, floor load in 40, like I said, I was like, this is a dream come true. I spent 9 years of my 20-year career in AFSOC on the gunship alone, and I don't know, outside of one hand, how many times we did that. I seriously don't. Maybe in the early days of Iraq, before I got to the squadron, they do it on a more regular basis. But I always remember
we did it. We would floor load when we were in Fallujah. We had Fallujah 1 and 2. We were floor loading ammo back then. We because we would, you'd shoot so much, you'd Winchester, and you'd still have 8-9 hours left in your day. So we come back in hot rearm. So we just drag cans of 40 across the floor and stuff, and strap them down the aisleway, and then go out and do it all over again. You might Winchester 2-3 times a night.
Well, and that's what we kind of talked about with you weren't here because of your cheap ass fucking internet, but when the Jaffe,
I have Huawei, man. It's from China, bro.
But no, when
It's all they can
when the
afford.
Joff kicked off,
It's
if you
actually right
remember
there.
that
It's
shit,
expensive as shit, but I don't get it. It's
yeah.
whatever.
Well, but no, even the Joff.
MediaCom, bro. MediaCom.
Hey, that's Northwest Florida for you. I'm here in North Texas, and
Monopoly.
we're good. But no, Najaf was.
I don't want to hear any more JJ serious talk. Come on, dude.
I'm not trying to be serious. I'm trying to be like, holy shit, this was stuff that I get to be a part of, and it was great because I've got those stories, and I remember.
Yo, I know.
If you want to get into some of the goofy ass shit, we went down to Tampa, and Dan Spurlock was our lead gun because this was also one of those where oh damn, what was his name? That he was from Orlando. And we ended up going to the Hard Rock Orlando, and that was when we had the gunship. If I'm a gunship guy, you're a homo bumper stickers, and we had a handful of those things, and we started going through the Hard Rock, and we're fucking tagging shit. I think we tagged like one of Elvis's outfits or something like that, and then tagged some dude's motorcycle with that stuff.
Well, you outed yourself now. They're gonna come get you now that they know.
They
Yeah,
are going
good
to
luck
E6
with that
you
shit.
out of any Hard
Elvis's
Rock.
underwear. You're
Yeah.
toast, bro.
Yeah,
So
whatever. But no, I'm just saying that we did. I mean, I've been a part of some of the goofy shit too. I mean, I haven't been all serious. I mean, I try
Well,
not
you
to
know
be
how,
serious 'cause that was what the last
I had-
episode was.
yeah, when I had texted you guys and said that I'd been in Korea all the damn time,
Yeah,
that
you
wasn't
had
no
kids probably
joke,
running
dude.
around there.
I think that was, yeah, probably. Who knows? I don't know. I don't know if it's because my eyes are a little Asian looking or what. They sent me over there all the time, thinking I was like I'm going home, but I don't think until I went to the CRW, I don't think I missed a single Korea deployment and for Full Eagle over there. But we would do all this crazy stuff we were talking about earlier with the dark humor. We did that everywhere we went, and I remember every time I went over there, like people were wanting to be on my crew, like be on the plane that went over, because every time I got to Hawaii, my plane would break and I might be there 2-3 weeks. So I'd only see like 1 week of the entire exercise. And it'd be, of course, the gas mask portion where you're all mopped out, run around mop 4 all the time. But, we get over there, and the Air Force or the 4th SOS used to give us what we called body bags. The big deployment bags are black. They're huge.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you could fit everything you had in there. Well, we had our original pilot. He was kind of a prankster, always joking with us. And so we had come up with this plan to get him back, but we didn't realize he had gone to NIF. So we were getting a guest pilot. And this guest pilot wasn't a prankster, but we decided to go ahead with our joke anyway. He was born again Christian. But we're like, hey, sir, we're going to bring some in-flight entertainment, because these missions are bullshit. They're long, boring. So we're going to bring some in-flight entertainment. He's like, okay, well, yeah, he thought we were going to bring videos or something, movies to play. He's like, well, you can't do anything while we're, doing the actual mission, but like, okay. And so what we did is we filled up one of those black body bags, the big bags that they gave us, North Face bags, full of blankets and towels and stuff. And then we all carried it like it was a human body, and we're gently putting it on the airplane. And while we're up flying, it was like, okay, hey, everybody would check off for about 10 minutes and go to the back of the airplane. And so it comes time the co-pilot, he goes, yeah, I'm going to check off to the back for a few minutes. So he comes back and he's standing back there bullshitting with us and goes, all right, it's been like 5-10 minutes. So he goes back up front, and I said, hey, pilot load. He goes, yeah, what's up? I said, your turn. She's all ready for you. She's ready back here. He goes, what the hell are you talking about? I said, the in-flight entertainment, dude. We went downtown, got her. She's on the plane. And he goes, was that what's in the bag? I was like, yeah. And he goes, if I come back there, man, there had better not be no whore on this plane. You better not have brought a prostitute on this plane. I was like, okay, well, what do you want me to do? He goes, there better not be a prostitute on the plane. So I walked over, where the handle is. You can just open that handle on the right parachute door
on the
just
right
enough
parachute door,
that it'll make the master light come on, but it's not unlocked. It just releases the micro switch. So I said, stand by, pilot. I go over and I move that handle just enough, and I can see the light, so I know my light comes on for the right paratroop door. And he's like, "Oh my God, crew, we got a door open light." And I said, "Stand
Well, I
by."
gotta get rid of the evidence.
Yeah, I go, "Stand by." And then I went, "Hoe away." And then I closed it. And he goes, What'd you just do? I said, "You said when we land or if you come back here, there better not be a hoe on this airplane." I threw her out, dude. She's gone. And he was losing
Get rid of
his
the
mind.
evidence.
And it took me, I think, the next 6 days to convince him that that was a joke. I mean, everybody on the crew was telling him it was a joke. He's like, "No, I'm pretty sure you guys are back there a long time. Everybody check out. What could you possibly be doing for 10 minutes?" And everybody's leaving their crew position. He was serious. It took him probably 5 years to finally say, "Okay, well, it's been 5 years and they haven't found a body by the DMZ in the middle of the woods. So it must have been a
Clear.
joke."
Legally
You
dead
know,
at this
it's
point.
just that dark humor
Yeah.
shit that we used to
Yeah.
do to each other all the time.
See, and honestly, I remember having something like that. Going back to that 12v1 crew, because we had to find humor somehow, because otherwise we were beating the shit out of each other, and it really wasn't each other on the crew. It was just, like I said, that one AC that we had. But anyhow, I remember we were tanking one night. It was with a KC-135 unit. And this was right after Mike Rowe had done his Dirty Jobs episode with the KC-135 unit out of Kansas. I think that's where it was. Well, anyhow, and they had that really hot boom chick that was on the episode. And so we go to hit our tanker or something like that. And, because it's at this point, it goes from what I think the nav talks to the tanker before we get into pre-contact. And then once it's pre-contact, it goes from the nav to the co-pilot to the boom, or however, shit, I can't remember it all. I literally don't.
Yeah, that's basically it. Then once the boom's connected, then it's the boom
it's
operator
boom
that
to
you're actually
co.
talking to.
So, we get plugged in with this 135, and this female's voice comes over the radio. Of course, we're in Iraq. I think at this point we didn't even have any females with us on this deployment. So it was kind of like you heard a female voice, everybody's wiener went bing. You got excited. And so it was just kind of one of those that it when this happened, we were kind of like, "Oh man, hey, is this a chick from Dirty Jobs with Mike Rowe?" Because she talked about all this other stuff. And I don't know how we put it together that this was the same unit or anything like that. And so Gooch was our co-pilot. And I still want to know how the fuck he ended up with the call sign Gooch. Because to me, Gooch is the taint. And so anyhow, and so Gooch is sitting there and he's talking to the chick, and I think it was Mao, myself, Frank Garcia, some of the other guys on the crew were like, "Gooch, you need to ask this chick if she was the one, the boom operator on Dirty Jobs." He's like, "I'm not asking her that." And of course, if you know Gooch, the best way I can describe him is if we were going to ever invade Hawaii, he would be our Dizzo, our direct sensor, or our translator.
Direct support operator.
Whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
That guy. So anyhow, but Gooch, that's what he would do, because he was like, "Oh, surfer dude type man. Yeah, like, cool." And so we're like, "Gooch, ask her if she was the one on Dirty Jobs." And he's like, "I'm not asking her that, man. You guys are setting me up." And we're like, "No, Gooch, seriously. This chick might have been on Dirty Jobs with Mike Rowe," because he had never heard of this show. And so we're like, "Gooch, come the fuck on, dude. Get on the team, And so I think it was finally one of those things that he'd argued back and forth for like 3 or 4 times with us. And we were like, finally, everybody on the crew went, not hot mic, but we all at the same time pushed the button and said, "Just do it." And he was kind of like, "All right, I'm pressured into this." And he goes, "Hey, so my crew wants me to ask you if you were like that chick on Dirty Jobs. I'm really sorry that I'm asking this." And she was like, "Oh no." And she was like super excited that anybody had even asked her this question. She's like, "No, that's my roommate." And he's like, "So like, that's legit show type thing? And she's like, yeah, it's on like whatever, whatever network it
Discovery.
was. Yeah.
Mhm.
Discovery.
And he was like, oh, well, that's cool. Cause I thought my crew was like trying to set me up. Cause, like you being a girl and us being all guys. And it literally was like, Gooch, you're the one pilot on this crew that we're not going to fuck over. And so he was kind of like, oh,
Yeah,
well,
I forget how he got that. I mean, I was on the deployment where he got that Delta Chi.
but he
We
never
would
would
give you
tell
Delta
me.
Chis that,
Yeah.
would stick forever. And,
Yeah.
and
but it
and
cracked me up
I don't
because he had a
remember what that,
photography degree.
I think the reason why he got that was because he kept saying, hey, dude, to the fucking tower constantly, or thanks, dude,
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if that's from like a comic strip or something, the Gooch, and it was, I know the AC that gave him the name, and he explained why he did, but he's like, I
But
guess
don't
Well, it's
I'm
get
the
me
not like
wrong.
Gooch
it's
now,
not
dude, so.
Yeah. But no,
it's not like
Gooch,
Gennard is a direct translation to Gooch.
The what? I'm sorry?
It's not like Gennard is a direct translation to Gooch.
No.
No, it's not. Yeah.
but don't get me wrong. I love the man. If he
Oh, yeah,
walked in right
good
now
dude.
and gave me a gun and said, shoot that dude in the head, I'd be like, all right, Gooch, I got you.
You're too serious again now, JJ. Come on.
Too serious, JJ. Shut down.
Somewhat I mean, hilarious.
No more
But anyhow,
whiskey for you. You're
Hey,
done.
so
shit.
okay,
we lost
so
Scoop again.
No, I'm still here.
no,
Okay.
he's still here. So
Yeah.
we're at about 2.5 hours in. We're gonna go ahead and go to the closing piece of it, and we'll
Okay.
have you both back for another episode.
Yeah, I'm game.
Coop, we'll start with you. What does it mean to be part of the Gunship Legacy, especially from the beginning?
Well,
Used to be
for
an hour
me,
long.
I've said it a couple of different times. I think with the retirement, that Colonel Ripple had read some of my words, that what being a part of this community is that, it's my family. These are my brothers and my sisters, and I'm closer with these guys and gals than any of my friends from, high school or grade school or anything like that. Just because I've been in this community now 30 years, and this is one place I've lived longer than anywhere else. So for me, it's like almost being in a mafia family, because we're pretty brutal on each other, but we don't let anybody fuck with us from the outside. That just doesn't happen. And I think that's like a lot of military units, especially when you spend so much time with these guys, because they're, to be honest, my wife was getting really sick of me being gone all the time, even when I was home, because I spent so much time with these guys overseas. I would go and do things with them. And, and so my weekends would be all tied up with going and doing things with those guys and not really with my family. So when I got non-voled to the CRW, that was actually kind of a godsend, because then it was just she and I and the kids again, because I didn't have all the other distractions. And but it's like, it sounds cliche. Everybody says, yeah, best job I ever had, but it actually was. And people ask me all the time, they're like, do you miss it? And I said, I don't really miss the flying anymore. I thought I would. I don't. I miss the camaraderie. I miss the just being around everybody. And I think that's why I spend I make a concerted effort a lot to call people that, like most of you guys wouldn't even know that they haven't been in the squadron, for 20 years. They're back in the early 90s and, 2000, and gone by the time you guys got here. But I make effort to call those guys and talk to them, because I mean, they've moved out of the state and nobody's keeping in touch with them. So, but that's why it's kind of, that's what it means to me, is it's a family, and it always has been, especially for us new, the guys that were there in the very beginning. We're all pretty dang tight still. So,
As you should be.
but
It's good. JJ, what about you?
Yeah, kind of like how I said earlier, being a part of the 4th SOS wasn't about me, wasn't about me getting the awards, wasn't about me getting, and when I say awards, is like the air medals, the AFCAM, anything like that. It wasn't about that. It was, it was about being something bigger than me. Um, I wanted to be a part of something because my days in the dental clinic, it was, hey, end of the day, that, you know, proverbial bell rang, everybody went their separate ways. I never had barbecues. I never had cookouts. I never had, hey, let's go out to the bar or anything like that with any of the crews that I worked with. Well, I take that back. Korea was a different story because that's all we had was each other. But um, when I was at Shepherd, when I was at Eglin, I didn't have that. And growing up in the Air Force, as an Air Force brat, that's what I experienced with my dad. Um, he didn't do his first deployment until 90 when Desert Storm or Desert Shield, I'm sorry, kicked off, and then Desert Storm. And so he was really tight with a lot of his individuals that he was responsible for in his support section of the 493rd there at Lakenheath. And it was really cool just because when those guys came together, it was like family away from home. And when I joined the Air Force, that's what I wanted. And it wasn't to say that my family here in Texas was dysfunctional or anything like that. It was just different. It wasn't that same camaraderie that, okay, yeah, I'm hanging out with my cousins or doing this or doing that. It wasn't the same thing. But when I got to the 4th, I felt that again because like Coop was saying, I mean, you're there for each other. You're doing more things with the guys that you work with or the families. Even then, even with the families, because our Marcy's still my wife. She's still very close with a lot of the wives from the squadron, and she misses it. But it was just kind of one of those things that brought us back to that where I, growing up in the Air Force, understood what family was like, and it doesn't necessarily mean that we shared blood. It was the fact we shared the same stories. We shared the same bullshit. We shared the same spit, sweat, blood, tears, everything else. And that's what it meant to me. Like I said, the mission always to me was first. Um, in fact, Justin, I remember talking with you one day when you were talking about getting out or cross training, going over to that unit
NSAV.
that you ended up going
Yeah,
to.
the
Was like,
NSAV. Yeah.
was like, hey, dude, you've got wife, you've got kids. You need to think about that before you think about you. Yes, this shit can suck. This shit can really push you to your limits. But in the end, you need to think about your family first. And that's what I really tried to impress upon you guys, even as loadmasters, was if you're not good at home, I can't trust you to be downrange. I can't trust you with 12 other individuals' lives in that airplane. And so that's what I really tried to impress upon you guys was I'm going to be here for you. I'm going to take the ass chewing if you guys fuck up. I may get into your ass at the end of it. And this is not something that Coop really taught me. It was just kind of one of those that Coop gave me some of those kind of stepping stones, so to speak, of how to treat you guys and how to take care of you guys. And I kind of expounded on that a little bit. Big thing that Coop taught me was, dude, you got to listen. You got to listen to your people. You got to take care of your people. And I knew that about as far as taking care of you guys, but it was more of once I kind of took what Coop had given me because when he got involved with the CRW, I was like, oh fuck me. I just put my stripe on. I don't even know
Yeah,
how to
you were
be.
like that. What do you think I was like?
Yeah, no, yeah. Exactly. Because I mean, it was one of those things. It was like boom, boom, boom. When you took over, it was like 6 months later. Hey, you got to train JJ. And then not only that, Jeremiah was there for like what, maybe 3 months of that. And it was just kind of one of those things that it was like, shit, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing.
Yeah,
I'm
we
just as
both
new
left.
to the gunship as you guys are. I'm still learning, but I've got to take that step farther and be the adult of all of you guys. And so, like I said, going back with you, because I remember specifically talking with you of all of my loads. I mean, I remember all of them, well, at least the ones that I wanted to stick around. was, I want you guys right here at home. You got to be able to take care of mama. You got to be able to take care of those kids. Because if they're calling me saying that you fucked up and didn't take care of this before you went down range, then you're putting all that emphasis on them to get everything done. And so to kind of draw everything back into your question was being a part of the fourth
Yes,
SOE.
get to that, JJ.
Shut up, Luke. Damn, Dick. You spent 3 hours or 2 hours of this on you alone, so shut up. But no, it was more of being a part of something that was bigger than me. And that didn't mean just the mission itself of taking care of the guys on the ground and getting them home to their wife and kids. It was about when I had to sign that line with the commander saying that, yes, I trusted this loadmaster to be in the airplane downrange. That was a part of it. And so it was kind of one of those things that I took that shit seriously. And I didn't want to put somebody in an airplane that wasn't going to bring the rest of his crew home or her crew home. And so, yeah, there were times where I probably was the asshole that you guys hated and you couldn't stand being around. And you were just like, I wish this motherfucker would get orders and get the fuck out of here so I can enjoy life. But it was because I cared. And it
Now, there
came
was
from,
several of those that I wanted to go away, but you weren't one of them.
well, and I honestly, I truly appreciate that because what I tried to do was exactly what Coop was doing, but I wanted to
I
put
was the
my
one he wanted to go away, and I did.
no,
I
fuck that.
No,
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 Coop,
Coop, it wasn't you.
Justin, myself,
It was
a shit ton of other guys will say the opposite
there,
of what you're saying.
yeah.
And I'm not saying that
opposite. It
because
had nothing to do with you
no,
or any of the OGs, other
no,
people.
no, it was
That
seriously
no,
one of those things that
JJ, look. I'll tell you this, and I don't know anybody's ever said this. I'm not kissing your ass or anything. You got handed a fucking shit sandwich, like straight up. Everybody pulled the CRG card. No offense, Coop.
no,
You know,
Coop was a not involved.
yeah, Coop was not involved, but you know, it was go to the 16th at Cannon or fucking hit the button, and everybody hit the button, and they did. And you know, JJ, you got handed a shit sandwich, and you know, regardless, you did what you could with what you had,
Right.
and you know, I
Well, and
I
you know
always
what?
felt great.
One
And
other
honestly,
thing, though, I want to
Go
say
ahead.
is, you know what I'm proudest of, though, is that right now in one of the wings there is a crusty ass old gunship loadmaster girl who's now the head of the wing spouses group. She's the wing commander's, you know, she's a wing commander's wife. So imagine that.
I think you
And
know
one
what
of
you're
us is
talking
now
about.
ascended. Yeah, yeah. So
I'm
that's
Yeah,
not
got to
going to
be an
say her name.
interesting. That's got to
Precious.
be interesting for
Yeah.
that spouses group. There's no.
Yes.
It's not that I'm proud of it. I'm just like the fact that there's the old crusty gunship load who's now in charge of the spouses group at one of the wings.
You know, I could
So
be happy for that because hey, we made it somewhere. But hey, but going back on what you said, Justin, about me getting a shit sandwich, you know, it was a shit sandwich I was willing to eat.
It was, but like, look, I'll just be honest. The the perspiration coming off of your forehead all the time, and
You know
like
what?
getting your shit kicked in all the time.
You know
And
what?
you just you like, yeah.
yeah, I didn't do
Honestly,
that to
I
you on
loved it though.
purpose. I did that because I knew they were taking me and Jeremiah. We were gone. You know, that wasn't. They were
Oh,
going to
I
non-volley.
don't. I'm not saying that it was any of y'all doing it. It
Right.
just was one of those
Well,
things
I
that
think you know, it for JJ. You know, it came down to convenience and the fact that he had rank, and because myself
yeah,
and
it was like
Jeremiah
the
were
only
leaving.
tech left.
Yeah,
It
I
was
mean
like
that's
the
and
only tech
and I'm not trying to knock him saying that he wasn't prepared, but you know, it's
I learned
hard to
by
prepare
fire.
for that role if
Yeah.
you're still a new guy yourself. So,
Yeah.
um,
But
Well,
you know
yeah,
what?
and then on top of that, he started losing all the experience loads he had
yep.
to, you know, I'll be honest, I left for NSAV. You had another left for NSAV, one left for MCJs. I mean, it was just one of those things that was like we all saw that. No offense to any H model people, Shipley, but it was like you know, we're either if we're gonna go to Cannon, like I'm gonna tell you, like I told Chief Olson, like, you know, if I'm going to Cannon, it's gonna be my own choice of where I go. I'm not gonna go to the 16th just because I was tired of the gunship mission. I wanted something else. But yeah, JJ, you got handed a shit sandwich, and you know, you somehow managed to digest it, and I always had respect for that. Now, what
I
came
appreciate
after
it.
that, you know, is what it is. But
But you know, like I said, you know, I would take that shit sandwich any day of the week because what I had to get through to make us successful as loadmasters, because I honestly felt that we were pretty successful when I was sitting at the head, was the fact that I didn't have you guys ended up in fucking jail. I had the one loadmaster. Yes, he fell asleep twice, but we kind of dealt with that individual. Otherwise, you guys, I mean, there was never a time another crew position came up to me and says, "What the fuck are you doing to me, load?" I'm like, no, you guys never came back as being that limp factor. It was one of those that I remember Pistol Pete, Colonel Mills, or not Mills, God, Pistol Pete,
McDonough,
McDonough, thank you. Colonel McDonough, of all things, called all of us flight chiefs and flight NCOICs into one of the briefing rooms one day. And, you know, McDonough, he didn't hold back. And I'm sitting there with Captain Larson, Mike Larson, sweating my balls off, going, "Oh shit, I don't want to hear this fucking ass chewing." And Colonel McDonough opens up and is like, "You motherfuckers." Or I don't think he said motherfuckers, but he got into everybody's ass and he was like, "You guys need to get your shit together, need to make stuff start happening and doing this and doing that." And he goes, "And the reason why I'm getting pissed off about this is because of the simple fact that there's only one flight that has got their shit together." And he goes, "D flight." And he goes, I sat there and I was like, fuck, that's not a, wait, no, we are D flight. EWOs and loadmasters, we're D flight. And so I'm sitting there going, oh, I can kind of relax for a second. And at the same time, I'm going, no, don't relax. Because that just means that he just highlighted you to the rest of the fucking squadron that we're doing something
Well, that's
right.
because of everything I did before I left. I fixed it all. You
I'm
just
not
had
doubting you. Yes.
I'm messing with you.
no, shit. I shit you not. All I did was continue what Coop was doing
That's right.
and
You
not
just
let that
sailed
shit
on
fall
my
off.
fucking laurels, dude. Riding
Yeah.
my coattails.
Success
Right?
built on
Good job.
success.
Yes,
Yeah.
Good
exactly.
job, Coop.
Hey, he built the wall. I just maintained the wall. So
Yeah.
no, and seriously, when that shit
Winter's
came down, I
coming,
was just
bro.
kind of like, oh my gosh. And we
Yes,
walked
it
out of
is.
that flight meeting, and I think it was somebody else, one of the O's. He goes, "Hey, JJ, I just got to let you know something." I was like, "What?" He goes, "Colonel McDonough's scared of you." I was like, "Bullshit." I was like, "There's no fucking way that man is scared of me." He goes, "No, you intimidate the shit out of him." And I was like, "How the fuck is that possible when I'm scared shitless of that man?" And he goes, "I don't know, but he's scared of you. I've heard him say it." And I was like, okay, from that point on,
Pete, if you're listening to this, I don't believe it. So go
no,
out to Texas, whoop
I'm
this
just
guy's
going by
ass.
what one officer told me. I have nothing but respect for Pete McDonough, Colonel Pete McDonough.
Objection, facts, not in evidence.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Awesome.
but it was just kind of
Hey,
one of those things.
well-
It was like, I'm scared shitless of that man. I don't even want to walk into an office because I remember that individual, Coop, that we were talking about earlier. He had sent in a letter to Colonel McDonough, or it could have been even Cartier at the time, about trying to go to the academy. And
Oh yeah, I remember that.
oh, because I remember telling you about this. And so Colonel McDonough he comes literally down to the flight, and he's like, "Sergeant Johnson, when you got a minute, I need to talk to you in my office." And I was like, "Oh, fuck me, who screwed up now?" You know, because we had a couple of those guys that were just knuckleheads. And I was like, "Wait, is this another Belden on the border story type thing, or Belden being the only one not drunk at a fight, Coop at Waterbuck?"
Belden constantly.
Yeah, I mean, so that was what was running
That
through
was a
my
good
mind.
one.
Don't get me wrong, I love Belden. I would bend
Honest
over
to God.
backwards for that kid any day of the week, just because I wanted to hear the fucking story on Monday morning of what he got into. So anyhow, Colonel McDonough comes down to the flight and he's like, Sergeant Johnson, I need to talk to you. I was like, so whenever you got time, come down to my office. And I was like, sir, right now I got time for you. And I pulled my cat card out of the reader and I walked down with him. And it was quiet the whole way down from the flight office all the way down to his office. And I was like, fuck, what's going on? You know, because very rarely do you have a sitting or even a deputy commander going, walk with me, so to speak. We get into the office and I shut the door behind me and he sits down behind his desk and I'm standing there at parade rest and he slides a paper in front of me and he goes, so this individual sent me a letter asking for my recommendation for the Air Force Academy. I looked at it and I tried to choose my words wisely, but I don't think I did because the way he looked at me, it was kind of like, I fucked up. But I said, sir, you signed that piece of paperwork, you're fucking your career for the rest of your life. And he kind of looked at me like I said, like I had just bent his wife over and taken advantage of her, so to speak. And I was
How
like, sir,
dare you?
yeah,
That
exactly.
whiskey's getting you, bro. That whiskey got you.
No, but hey, I'm being honest. And that's exactly how Colonel McDonough looked at me. It was like, how dare you talk to me this way? And I was like, no, sir, you got to understand the way I feel about this individual sending you that piece of paper. I care more about your career and how you're going to look if you put your signature on that than what happens to him. And he kind of was like, okay, I see where you're coming from, Sergeant Johnson. It's like, I wasn't going to sign it to begin with, but I wanted to see where you were coming from. And I was like, sir, I care about you. I don't care about that guy. And I hate to say that being an NCOIC because it was my job to take care of you guys. But that one individual, I was like, nah, fuck no. This kid doesn't need to be in the military
Yeah.
because he's going to kill somebody. And
Yeah.
so after
Hey,
that, I think that was when Colonel McDonough and I had that mutual relationship of, I know Sergeant Johnson's going to say what he speaks. And that's exactly where I come from is I didn't play the game. That's the reason why I retired as a tech sergeant. I didn't play
Yeah.
the game. I
Yeah.
cared more about those underneath me or those that I was responsible for than making stripes. And that's not to knock anybody that is made master, senior chief, or anything like that. It is the fact that I was not PC because when I left Ramstein,
Yeah.
as the NCOIC of airlift plans there, I told the major, I said, no. And he couldn't believe it because we had an 06 on the Air Force staff that was like, hey, you guys need to start doing this as far as like checking the security of airfields and so on and so forth. I was like, but you've got a security forces element that's on your A staff that does that for us.
Right.
No, I'm not going to do that. And so they came back and told me, you got to shut up and color or you're not going to get a PCS medal out of this. And and when the major was talking to me about that, he was like, JJ, what's going on? I was like, this is bullshit. And you know it's bullshit. And that's the reason why I'm standing up for the other guy that's going to be sucked into having to do this shit on his own until the guy that replaces me gets here. He was like,
Right.
yeah, well, that's
and
not
that's
how
how
this
that's how he feels about the community. That's how it's
Yeah.
tied all
Mhm.
together there. That's what it's
Yeah.
like to be a part of it. His eating shit sandwiches and telling colonels to go fuck themselves. That's what it is.
Yep.
There, I clipped
I
out the
wasn't
45
afraid
minutes.
to do that. I had
Thanks, Coop.
the
Appreciate
intestinal
that, Coop.
fortitude to say,
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
this is stupid, sir. You need to shut the fuck up and do what you've got to
That
staff
might just be
for.
the teaser audio. Eating shit sandwiches and telling colonels to fuck off.
That's
Hey,
right.
Yep.
Yeah. Hey, I
when
got
when
one
I
quick,
could piss
quick
off a
funny
senior
story
officer,
though.
Do it, Coop. Do it, Coop.
Yeah. So
when I could piss off
you
a
know,
senior
there's
officer, I was
you know the
grateful
cat
for.
card, the cat card, the common access card. You know what the reader's actual name is? It's the
Mm-mm.
virtual access gateway. Somewhere out there, there's a bunch of nerds that got one over on the Air Force on that because nobody
Got
says the
that.
virtual access gateway at all. So everybody's got their
vag.
CACs and badges. So a lot of people don't know that, but I saw the slides, briefing slides when I was
Okay.
up in McGuire.
So anyone listening to this, if you know anyone that created that is responsible for that,
that would be
acronym,
awesome.
I would
Find
love to
them.
know that.
we need that show.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, guys, I appreciate all your time and the stories, and we will have you back if you'll come back. And
Spin it up. Eyes on. I'm a gunship guy. You know what you are. Circle in the black. I'm the quiet star. You ride straight line. I draw halos wide.